Yeah, Edgar it is. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the Outbreak Happy Hour. I'm meteorologist Stormcat 5. We got a packed show today. We've got some unbelievable co-hosts and guests to our left. Guys, why are we here? Well, we are here to have an open forum of Senate Bill 158 in Oklahoma. Now, that bill has been introduced and is being talked about in a committee. And the goal of that bill is been discussed a lot in the storm chaser community, in the broader meteorologist and weather community. And I wanted to bring all of us together, right? And I know there's about 196 will be watching on different platforms. That number I think will climb. But I wanted to bring all of us here in a group just to talk about, first of all, what is this new bill? What could it do? What's everyone's opinions on it? Because I think there's been a lot of back and forth on social media about what exactly is this, what it could do, and I know there's a lot of different opinions. Now, before we get started, though, I do want to say this. First of all, guys, we're all part of the same community. We're all one big weather family, and so I want everyone in the chat, please be respectful. There are two very different sides here. And so just please be respectful in the chat. We'll have our monitors, but I do want to hear from you. So if you are watching in the chat over on Twitter or on YouTube, let us know where you stand on some of these issues and talk and let's have a spirited discussion, right? And this is supposed to be an open forum, so we've kind of got viewpoints from both sides here. Before we get started, I do want to, and we are monitoring also some severe weather in Tennessee and Kentucky. So if there are any tornado warnings, we might have to do a break-in on that. But right now, it's only severe thunderstorm warnings. I do want to talk to our co-hosts and guests tonight. And let's go ahead and start with our epic leader, Phil Johnson. Phil is in Cincinnati right now. And Phil, what are you drinking tonight?
Brady, I'm drinking some water. I'm getting kind of tame. I might be disappointing some people tonight. Jordan, maybe. But I'm going nice and clean with water, so that when we're all done, no one can say that it was the alcohol talking.
That's fantastic. That's a good choice there, Phil. We've also got storm chaser Jordan Hall joining us as well. Jordan, you're joining us from Oklahoma right now, correct?
Yep,
what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking water as well to get ready and cured for Summit. So excited to talk with all of you guys.
That's great. I love that water. That water, whatever can that's in, that's a great, that's just a great water can right there.
It's cold.
It's genius. It's absolutely genius. We've also got storm chaser Edgar O'Neill, who's joining us as well. Edgar, love that green light in the background and that T-shirt. What is that T-shirt?
Yeah, look at this T-shirt. This is amazing. This is the Jordan Hall official right here. Parental advisory. If you guys don't know Jordan, got to watch out. He loves chicken wings. So,
are you bringing those to sale? I'll buy one.
I might.
You need to.
Why I was asking if he was there.
Wow. Edgar, are you drinking anything tonight?
I'm drinking Squirt. There we go.
Oh,
Squirt.
They even make a
grapefruit
Squirt
soda. That's weird, right?
Wow.
Yeah, super weird. I'm drinking. Yeah, I'm a fat kid, so I got to get off the sugar.
I'm the same way, my brother. We also got Eric Fox joining us as well. Eric, you are joining us. Where are you at right now? Are you in Oklahoma as well?
I'm in Burke-Burnett, Texas. Just sold my house in Oklahoma, moving down to Texas. So I'm in my RV, hanging out in Burke-Burnett.
Wow. Are you drinking anything tonight?
Water, because we all know what happens in a week from tonight. My first initial night of the National Storm Chaser Summit, which means my liver needs to detox completely. So I'll be nothing but water.
I love it. I think I'm on the same path here. We also got Orrin Faley joining us as well. The legend. How are you doing tonight? What are you drinking? Oh, I see you got a Modelo.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do, I drink whatever this is. It's in the back of the commercial. Right, probably old, but it hits a spot.
I love it. And where are you in Oklahoma as well?
Nope, Tucson, Arizona. It's where I live.
Oh, cool.
Sunny,
okay.
Beautiful Tucson, Arizona today.
Well, I think I'd take that over cloudy, miserable, rainy Ohio right now. But well, thank you for joining us, Warden, and thank you for joining us, everyone. So let's go ahead and get right into it. First of all, I want to talk about this for those that don't know. So Oklahoma has introduced, it's a bill called Senate Bill 158, right? I think it was by, was it Michael Mann, the state senator, I believe? I think, yeah. he was introduced by Michael Mann, the state senator, and this bill essentially has a couple different provisions in it. But when was it? When was this first introduced? Wasn't it introduced like sometime last week, guys?
So
help me out.
The initial bill was wrote December 20th.
Okay.
And then the first day of session was actually on Friday of last week. And that's when it actually hit the airwaves. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So this is, guys, this is like just really new, and it's just been introduced in the state legislature. And there's a lot of different stuff that this bill says. I want to give everyone just kind of the lay of the land.
The National Weather Service has
unbelievable.
issued a new tornado warning.
We're getting a tornado warning. All right, let me mute that real quick.
Tornado warning for.
Wait, is there
All
really
right,
a tornado
I'll get the
warning?
counties. I'll get the counties of where that tornado warning is because
This bill's
I
a
think
tornado warning.
it's in Kentucky. This tornado warning is in Kentucky, so it looks like we have a
And
tornado
Tennessee.
outbreak on our hands. Yeah, it's
And we've got
unbelievable.
two of them.
So we do have 2 tornado warnings while we're doing this show. So we'll have to at some point break to those. But we do have 2 tornado warnings, one in Tennessee and one in Kentucky. So it's unbelievable. But this bill right now, it's in total, and what I've got on screen is the bill. It's about 8 pages, and the first couple of pages go into detail about exactly defining a lot of the terms. So there are terms in here, that one being professional weather tracker. So exactly what that means, what that term means. There's another term called qualified media outlet. And the language here is important because this is how the bill, you'll see these terms actually throughout the bill. And then you also have qualified institution of higher education. That's like a college or university. You also have a significant weather event. When they say significant weather event, think about, enhanced, moderate, or high risk. That's also tornado watches, severe thunderstorm watches. It also includes things like blizzard warnings, red flag warnings, and flash flood warnings. So those are the different terms that exist in this bill. And if we actually take a look at what it says, going further down, this is basically just, it would allow creation of what's called this severe weather tracker license. And let me go ahead and circle that so the audience can kind of see what I'm talking about here. It's this right here, this severe weather tracker license. This is where I think a lot of the discussion tonight is going to be around, okay, what does that mean? What is a severe weather tracker license and who can get it, right? And I think, Eric, I want to bring you in right now just to start things off with, because you talked to one of the co-authors of the bill, correct?
Correct. Yeah. It's Representative Fetgatter. He's the
Okay.
co-author of the bill. He's from East Oklahoma. And, I actually sat down with him and Jeff Petrowski. We had a conversation. It was an informal conversation. Just to see where everything was at, because I could tell you right now, this was sent to me before it actually hit the presses, and I was an automatic no. Like anything, I am a First Amendment, freedom of the press, no regulation. This doesn't need to happen kind of guy. And I was, with my platform and what I do with the Storm Chaser Summit, I'm just like, hold on, I'm going to have to be a voice on this to shut this thing down. Because, I don't believe in any kind of regulations really in general, and so when I got to talking with him, and Jeff and I, we got a little bit of a background of where this came from. And I believe it actually comes from the heart. I believe with at least Representative Fetgatter, he wants us out in force. He wants storm chasers out in force. He wants them. He told me a story of his community getting hit by a tornado last year, and there was a roadblock that actually blocked most of the chasers from being there. There was no tornado warning on it, severe warning, but yet there's a tornado on the ground. And one lone media chaser, I believe, that was out of Tulsa, was able to get on this tornado and enhance the warning processes, which is what we all want to do, right? We want to be able to help. So that's why it got emotionally involved with it. He didn't really get in details of how and why it went from there and where it's at now. Those details are still yet to be found out. But from there, I believe his heart is in the right, because what he does, what his exact words to us were, I do not want this bill to stop storm chasers to be able to help to do their thing. But there's a divide is who is qualified and who is getting into these licenses. And it's really that secondary areas that they're talking about. Like, okay, OHP puts up a roadblock, who's going to get past that roadblock? And that's where they're standing at right now, and where we're getting a lot of wishy-washiness and information that we're trying to figure out is, okay, I know their heart is in the right place. They're not trying to stop storm chasing. I can tell you that right now. His exact words to me were, I will kill this bill before it starts hurting the public. Okay, so I know his heart's in the right place. But the question is where's this line of regulation? I do not believe that the regulation should be there at all. I'm not a fan of this bill, even after talking to him. I don't think it's them trying to be harmful or trying to shut us down or trying to stop storm chasing at all. But if there's a element of anybody trying to dictate who gets the storm chase and who doesn't, that is a slippery slope I'm worried about. And that conversation coming out of that was very positive, because I don't think this is going to stop storm chasing at all. That is not in the bill, but it's that secondary thing of, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? Is this coming from TV people? Is this coming from, I could tell you everybody right here that I see storm chase, well, 3 to 4 of us on here that I could see storm chase for some sort of media outlets. I do it professionally. I do it full time, right? That's what I do. And so if I got a local TV station trying to create a bill to keep me out, you're going to be damn right I'm going to fight every way I can to kill this bill. So that's where we're at right now. That's the conversation I last had 2 days ago. I can tell you there's other people involved in this that's beyond me. And so, but with me being a leader as a Storm Chaser Summit, the main thing, there's national Storm Chaser Summit, my name for a reason. I want to help represent every storm chaser in this country and world. We got international people that this is going to affect. So, at this point, I'm worried about other states coming into this, and this is going to open up a can of worms. And so that's why I'm here doing what I'm doing, trying to be that voice for everybody. And I'm not hiding anything, and I'm not going to hide anything. And I can tell you right now, I'm hoping to have further conversations, and I'm going to be yelling from the rooftop. And this better be done right, because I have a huge First Amendment issue with this. And I'll stop and let everybody else.
I want to ask a quick question. Does anybody know the difference between Brady introduced Senate Bill 158, but there's also House Bill 2426? Does anybody know the difference between those two? Because there are some differences written in those.
Yeah. So if anybody knows, it's Civics 101, and not to put anybody under the bus here, but civics really isn't taught, especially to the younger generation. And I feel like kind of the issues we're having on social media, instead of going with facts and going and waiting and figuring out what actually is happening, we're getting everybody yelling from the rooftops, all different kinds of stuff, and it's not productive. So in civics, the way it works, you have different bills. You're going to have a Senate bill, and you're going to have a House bill, and then you're going to have reconciliation. So the first thing they had to do was pass to make this even viable bill in a committee. And that's where it's at now. That first committee is like, can this even be a bill? So it's got to go through all kind of scrutiny. And so, yes, they're like, this can be a bill. So now you have two versions, one in the House, one in the Senate, and you're going to have different people work on this bill. And then at some point down the road, they're going to have to pass their committees too, right? So each one of these have committees that they've got to pass. So within that, after that, it's got to come together into one bill. And so that's why you have two bills that'll come into one bill, and that bill will be voted on by the entire body of the Senate and the House. And then it's got to go to the governor, and the governor has to sign it, right? So that's Civics 101. And that's where we're at right now. We're only on step 1 of 50 steps. Their exact words to me were, this could take up to 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So basically what the bill that we're seeing now is almost like a draft version is what we're saying.
Yeah, and it's already been changed. It's already been changed from what I understand.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So I think Jordan, well, I want to go to you next, and then Edgar, I can go to you next as well. So I think a lot of the questions and concerns, I think, of the storm chasers, and Also, I'm getting another tornado warning in my ear, so there's like 4 tornado warnings out right now. So I may want to. We may need to pull up radar at some point because there is in southern Kentucky right now. We've got a total of 4 tornado warnings right now. So if you do live in southern Kentucky, northern Tennessee, this is Outbreak. We do this show all the time, so we always like to hit on tornado warnings. Just know there is several tornado warnings ongoing there, and we'll try to keep the radar up on the screen so you guys can see it as we do this show. But Jordan, I do want to talk to you about this term professional, severe weather tracker, which is defined here, and at least how it's defined in this bill. It's someone with a licensed individual or company hired or contracted by a qualified media outlet or affiliated with the research program. So essentially, it's someone that would work for some sort of media company, like a TV station, radio station, or someone
recognized by the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC.
Okay. So okay, yeah. So yeah, exactly. Or it could be someone recognized by like a university or something like that.
Right.
Do you like that kind of leave? I mean, that does leave some chasers out. Do you want to talk about like that term and what you thought when you read that?
Reading that, it's still confusing to me. Obviously, that you have some media outlets that might not be FCC affiliated. When I first read this bill, I'm gonna be honest, it really looked like it was just from first point of view, first look at it. It looked like it was a bill to better protect the K4s, the K5s, the Channel 9 news chasers that fly around and do what they do. So by first glance, starting as an amateur storm chaser like I did, not a fan of it. But the part that really bugs me and rubs me the wrong way at being a former first responder was the ability to act in like code 3 and drive as if you were considered a first responder, because there's a lot of training that goes into doing that storm chasers don't have. And a lot of the media chasers don't have either. So I think that's one of my biggest hard hitting facts. But again, like Eric said too, this has already been changed more than we even know so far. This is a very much a draft, most likely. But that was the number one thing that caught my eye. And I think other people can hit on it. And I think Warren has a lot of good points too. So.
Yeah. And to Jordan, to your point, this was towards the bottom in section 5. I think this was on page 7. This basically saying being able to display markings, clearly identifying them as a vehicle, also being able to use like visual signals. So that's the thing about like lights, etc. And Warren, looking at this bill, I know you've been on social media talking about what this bill is. What were your first thoughts when you saw this bill, and what are your thoughts now after kind of a day or two has passed since this has been brought to light?
Well, like a lot of people, I think, and if you were a resident of Oklahoma or if you knew anything about storm chasing, you would say, wow, this is a great bill. It intends to do good, which, again, I think the representatives and senators who put this together, that was their intention. But if you go line by line, if you have any familiarity with and Bill's work, you'll see that there's a lot of things in here that would keep people from chasing. First of all, when they say FCC stations, they're talking only about TV stations. There's no exemption for print media, Skywarn, National Weather Service spotters, any volunteer EMS people, any other journalists whatsoever. It's entirely focused on FCC, which is a Federal Communications, which license TV stations. So they're the only ones who are going to be licensed with this. Don't be fooled. That's very clear in there, and we would suspect we know where that came from. The other part that was the most disturbing, and I would say is the most disturbing part of the bill for me, is giving civilians the ability to run Code 3. And you can only imagine us who chase storms, how hyped up people get when they're out chasing. Or even in the city of Oklahoma, when you have news crews responding to these events, you can only imagine the mayhem of having untrained civilian people running Code 3. And I've run Code 3 before, back when I was a newspaper photographer. I used to embed with federal units and sometimes the local police and run Code 3. It's exciting, but it's also very scary.
Warren, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt. What is a Code 3 for like our audience and for me too?
equipment, which could mean they didn't define that, but it would mean at the least they do say emergency vehicles, which opens up a Pandora's box of what they can do. But it would mean red lights. And that alone would mean you would be able to do the same things as the bill says, emergency vehicle, be able to come up to through them, be able to exceed the speed when it's necessary, be able to travel 20 miles per hour down the road if you want, be able to pull and pass you as an emergency vehicle. We know those laws. So all the laws afforded to emergency vehicles, which would hinder chasers and other people trying to move around. But again, the big danger is having people running code 3 to storms. There's no need, because as a first responder, we had to study cases of people responding code 3, and you can look this up on your own. It only increases the arrival time. I think it's an average of 1.5 traffic. So it's not like it's going to get you there an hour before the storm or get you there before everyone else. It's not going to do that. The only thing it's going to do is cause more panic on the roads, people pulling over, people not being able to pass. And as the bill says, the enforcement of this is up to law enforcement. So that means that you may have an officer in one jurisdiction who may say, you're not these vehicles, or if you pass even any of the lane, you're going to get the $1,000 ticket and how many points it is against your license. So the bill is very vague. It opens up the door to a lot of real dangerous activity. And I think it totally counters any good it would ever do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, do you guys think that I was just going through a scenario in my mind, right? And we can talk about this scenario, because I think that if this scenario would happen, this would be what a lot of chasers would have an issue with. So say it's an enhanced risk day, or let's just say moderate for fun. Let's say it's a moderate risk day. So you're in Oklahoma, moderate risk. You are going to get an absolutely, who knows how many people on the roads, storm chasers going to go chase these storms. Could, say law enforcement that day says, hey, we know the storms are going to be in western Oklahoma, right? And there's kind of an area where the moderate risk is. We're going to shut down some roads there, just so, say those roads are in the middle of nowhere, right? And we're going to kind of shut down some of those roads ahead of time, knowing there's severe weather that will be in that part of Oklahoma. Do we think this bill gives, first of all, the ability, I guess the police can do what they want. They already can shut down roads, right? But does this bill give them the ability to shut down those roads, and then the people who with the license would only be able to get into that region? Or do we think that is not in this bill? Because I think that's really the issue of the storm chasing community is, will this stop me from being able to go on certain roads when storms are approaching, right? And be able to, because I think it's not saying, this bill's not saying no one can chase in Oklahoma. It's more of okay, some chasers might be able to chase better or get to some places that other chasers might not. Do we think that is what this bill is saying?
First off, it doesn't include moderate risk days. That's actually not included in the bill.
Oh, that's a problem.
But everything above that is included in the bill, or would count. But that is, here's how I take it. According to how the bill is written, in my opinion, it would read that theoretically that could happen. Right? Because all it's talking about is closed roads and the ability for a professional licensed chaser to be able to go through those. And legally, if you don't have, if you're not an emergency vehicle, legally you can't go through a closed road legally. But my take on this is always, there's no way that could be enforced. Realistically, that they could just close off an entire region somehow. And do that, because law enforcement certainly has other things to worry about than to try and station at every intersection in a region to try and close an area.
Well, Phil, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that, Phil, and everybody knows I'm a law enforcement officer in Oklahoma. There are laws that says if you bypass any kind of barrier, including a stationary police vehicle, it is a high level misdemeanor in the state of Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. There's rules and laws on board right now that if basically this all would aid. And so if you're going through that barrier or you're going around that officer and you're caught in that zone, Therefore, you are committing a crime, and not
Yep.
just this crime for a fine. You're talking a criminal penalty by arrest.
Yep.
So
Right. No,
there's
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying how do you enforce that in a large region? That's my point.
well, if you that's the problem is like
ability
if
to
you
do
get
that.
caught, right? But I'm telling you, if you get a small town cop, which goes into a whole nother avenue, you get a small time cop that says, "Oh, I was told this area is blocked." They're not going to question anything. They're going to just do what they think they're doing is right in their job, and that's why I say this whole thing's a slippery slope.
Right, but why
because
can't they do that now, Eric? There's nothing that prevents them from blocking a certain area that none of us could get past anyway.
But now
It
there would be
happens.
But now with this bill, there would be vehicles with labels on them that says that's
That
why
can get
there was
through
a
it.
requirement. Yeah, exactly. So they would.
Yeah.
I think that's why the police don't do it now, just because they would actually have a way to be like, oh, you don't have that on there, I can give you a ticket or kick you out of this area.
Yeah, I just realistically enforcing that, I don't see.
Right.
And Eric, you would know. I mean,
It would be
and
hard to
and
enforce.
and what happens, right? That happens now. There are times you come across and the road's closed. There might be an officer sitting there, and you can choose to go past them and around them, which people have, right? And are they getting pulled over because that happens? I haven't seen that happen yet, because that law enforcement officer has had other things to do. But otherwise, like me, you just go, that road's closed. I got to go a different direction. We face that quite a bit.
I also
So
have a question after you're done. Go ahead.
Well, that brings up a good point, Phil. Because okay, I want to say this. A lot of people know I was involved in the Twistex investigation, and so within that, without getting into too much details, and it wasn't just them. There was multiple people that got put in harm's way because of a road closure on Highway 81. They clearly blocked the northbound lanes and did not allow people to go north, which forced them south. And I got tons of people talking about that. So within that, I've been trying to get a hold of Oklahoma Highway Patrol and DPS to try to get them to stop closing roads and make them understand. I have physical proof that you put people in harm's way by closing roads. Now, this is not a shot at them. This is like they're trying to do what they think's best to save lives. Okay, I get that. But right now, with me being involved in this, that is my number one focus: is don't block roads. Stop blocking roads, because all it does is put people in harm's ways in multiple ways. As Jordan knows, he used to be a firefighter. When you back up roads, you create accidents. And so my thought right now is like, why block a road? Why have this bill at all and block a road? If you take that away and you don't block roads, you don't need this bill. Now, when you get into disaster scenes, it needs to be regulated. Okay, done on my soapbox.
No, that makes sense. My mindset too. Let's say, tornado damage, they have the roads blocked. Okay. A lot of us, me, for example, Edgar, some of us out there, we're usually on the scene before anybody else doing search and rescue. And let's say, that's all going to get shut down. Well, who's to say when, I don't have a storm chasing license and law enforcement's coming through there and we've been in there doing search and rescue. And they're like, you don't have a license. How'd you get in here? And I get questioned and ticketed for being in there, even though the road is closed, but it wasn't closed beforehand. I'm curious how that gets regulated too. Because that's going to be a whole nother, it's gray area, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's an easy way to fix this.
Yeah, go ahead, Warren.
The real easy way to fix this. When I was at the fires in California covering the Palisades fire, I had heard a lot about the equal access media laws, where they'll let you in if you're credentialed. I have media credentials, and I also have, because I'm an EMT, I have my EMT credentials. I had no problem. I thought when I got there, this is going to be a nightmare. I mean, it's LA. You know what the traffic's like, especially around a fire. The law enforcement, the fire people were fantastic. They looked at my ID, they looked at my credentials, and let me in. I mean, it was wonderful. I didn't need no stinking badge. And it was great. It works. It works 100%. This is what this bill needs to be. They need to completely abandon this one and do an equal access for the media law, which would get anyone with media credentials or state certified EMT, paramedic, et cetera, fire. Those people could get in, they could remain in, and everything is solved. If there's a roadblock, here it is. Here's my EMT badge, or yep, here's my media credentials from the Wichita newspaper, and you get in. There's no need to go through this whole process of upsetting other people and endangering the public with Code 3. Just make it a media and emergency responder access law. Done, signed, taken care of 100%.
I'll tell you what I love about that too is the fact that it would encourage other chasers then to say, you know what, I should go get that training, and then you got more people that can help as well. So if that's like, go get that license, not worry about all the crap you got to do to get a this tracker license. Go get certified. Go get your EMT training done.
The thing I like about making it more of a press issue is my biggest issue with the bill is I don't like that the government's defining my profession, right? Because that's what this bill, in some ways, is trying to do. And so my biggest, I just think the bill shouldn't be here. I'm kind of with Eric on that. Just in general, I'd rather not have the regulation, but I do like the idea of pushing it more in like fair press laws, because we all have the right to be press, right? So, there's ways that we can all get press credentials if that's what we choose to do for a profession. So I think I like that idea much better. I think that's, and not to mention all the other stuff everyone said about the Code 3. That's just crazy to think that you'd have them people running out there with the reds on in the middle of a storm. I just can't even imagine what that would be like,
Right. And then on top of what Warren said too, like when I went up to California for the wildfires, like you show up, you have a media badge, you're in. You're at your own risk in there. I mean, they trust that you are going to, do what you need to do, but you're going to be safe doing your own thing, but you're your own liability when you're in there. And that's something you have to take on yourself. But that comes with that. But that was one of the craziest things I can say was going there and experiencing that for the first time really opens your eyes on like, wow, how managed it is out here and controlled. So.
Yeah. And the other thing is,
go ahead, Warren.
The bill has no limit on how many TV media personnel you can have or research personnel you can have. So if I was a news station in Oklahoma City, I would be out right now buying every vehicle I could find, every used vehicle I could find, and maybe put 100 people on the road because there's no limit. And you can imagine what maybe 40, 50 emergency vehicles did, but can you imagine aggressive news stations wanting to be the first on the scene, going out and putting out, I'm going to put out 10 vehicles, and the next station puts out 20 vehicles. It would be absolutely out of control. So that's another thing people didn't notice about the bill. And the governor or maybe other officials can declare an emergency, which means only emergency vehicles would be allowed on the road at all. So there you go.
So you talk about that, Warren, because I
for
think that raises one of the issues that I foresaw. Because here's the deal: if I'm running a news station, that's what I'm doing. Like if this were to pass, right? Hypothetically, if this were to pass as it's written today, that's what I would do. I would go get a bunch of cars, hire a bunch of people that don't have criminal records, give them a car with lights and sirens, and then I would send, because they'll send out multiple teams to different spots of the state, right? So they got someone at a storm. So I would send at least 2 or 3 or more out on a storm, and you've got a chaser, and all the other ones are doing is they're just running blocked. They're just maybe running behind, and they're communicating, hey, and again, I understand this is like worst case scenario, but hey, if I'm running a news station, this is what I'm doing. And calling saying, hey, can you stop at this intersection behind me, block that. I'm going to keep going, and then I'm going to send the other vehicle out to this intersection to block that one. And theoretically, as it's written, you could do that.
Yeah.
Just imagine Anchorman, but storm chasers.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Literally.
And guys, we two things. First of all, I do want to thank
you a ticket.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so 2 things. One, Reed Timmer has officially joined the chat, everyone. Reed has officially joined the chat. Reed, welcome, my friend. You got the is that the N95 mask with the mold?
So, someone tell him we won't get sick through the camera.
Oh,
I got a mold issue here in the Dominator 4, so I just got back on the grid. I caught about 15 trout today.
oh my! You caught 15?
Nice.
I thought you said
Wow.
you weren't good at
Did I
fly
lose
fishing.
you?
Are you kidding me? No, we can hear you. We can hear you, Reed. Reed told me he wasn't good at fishing, and he caught 15 trout today. That's insane.
15 trout. Presenting the fly. How's it going, guys? Yeah, my concern is just that we're going to be seeing local media storm chasers giving out tickets to the non-media storm chasers.
Reed, who would you not want to get a ticket from?
Oh boy, that's
You put him
That's a
on the
loaded.
spot.
I put you right on the spot, baby.
yeah, maybe
You don't have
Warren,
to
maybe
answer
Warren
that.
Fadley, maybe Warren Fadley. The sheriff's in town.
Oh my god, I love it. I love it. So Reed, we were just talking about this bill, and we were talking about we're going through some of the different provisions in it, and first of all, I do want to thank Kate and Inspector Sassy as well, who both donated towards the Jet Fund. So thank you guys for donating towards the infamous Jet Fund here. Really appreciate you guys. Chipping in here. I see all of your guys' comments in the chat. So, guys, if you do have questions for this crew, please let us know in the chat, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on YouTube, whatever platform you're watching on. Please let us know, and we'll put your questions on the show and ask this unbelievable, because this guy's. You know how rare this is to get this kind of star-studded panel in one place at one time. Warren, Reed, Jordan, Edgar, Eric, and Dan and Phil. Guys, first of all, thank you so much for joining. We've kept it pretty cordial so far. Reed, I want to go to you. What are your thoughts? So we kind of talked a little bit earlier, and we just got a new tornado warning too. So we'll have to hit that in just a sec, because there's 5 active tornado warnings right now. But what is your thoughts from this bill? What was your first impressions? What are kind of the hopes that you have for this bill as it continues to mature?
Well, my first impressions were panic, disappointment. I was really, we've been waiting for some for a long time. It's threatened upon storm chaser time as well. I saw it, I assumed instantly that local media, legacy media, is behind it. Basically a way to kind of a corner the severe weather content. And I understand, though, that they have very important work out there, saving lives and reporting the storms that are happening. But I'm just not sure that kind of giving the handful of chasers like that exclusive access is going to help save lives in the end. I've always seen storm chasing. The more people you have out there, the less likelihood a tornado is going to go unreported or unseen. And it feels like when you have a large number of storm chasers out there, all streaming live, all reporting to the Weather Service, that seems to save a lot more lives than just having 2 to 3 storm chasers out there trying to dig a needle out of a haystack. But I heard some of the discussions that what's to prevent a news network from sending out 500 storm chasers with emergency vehicle lights on there, because there really is no limit. So, but there's no limit, to lots of aspects of this bill. To be able to apply for a license, you have to have a job with legacy media or university, and there are so many professional storm chasers out there that aren't employed by those 2 entities. So it's just a little bit of a concern on a lot of fronts, but regulation, storm chasing licenses, declaring emergency areas, blocking off whole sections of Oklahoma. I think that there are just a lot of problems with this bill, and we're trying to gear up for tornado season right now, and we have to talk about this bill nonstop. So it's
we're literally in tornado season. We're not in tornado season yet, but we're literally in the middle of a tornado outbreak right now, Reed. And we're talking about, we've got 5 active tornado warnings, and we're talking about this bill because of how just important it could be. And to your point, right, looking at the bill, and not only that, but you also have you have to get a letter from a chief meteorologist at a qualified media outlet. So that adds another kind of check to being able to get a license. Say, what if that chief meteorologist were to say,
you got to be in good terms. You got to kiss a lot of ass. That's what this bill is gonna cause. You have to cozy up to a chief meteorologist and hope that you can get a license. You'll have to volunteer for legacy media. It's going to be tough to make ends meet. I assume that news networks already.
Uh-oh. Robot Reed. It's Robot Reed.
Hey, can we confirm that this bill, as it's written right now, at least doesn't give these legacy media licensed storm chasers the ability to write tickets to Reed when he passes them, passes their robot? I don't want him to think that's going to happen to him.
Oh man,
Well,
I can't confirm or deny that.
As I know the bill, it's actually by fine only. So it's like nobody's going to be going to jail over it. But, with that, Reed's got a point there. As far as the legacy media, because I don't know I know a lot of chief vets. They've all reached out to me. There's no way these companies are going to accept the liability to put their name on these licenses. So that's just going to increase or decrease it more who gets these licenses if that's the case. There's no way they're going to put their name in their company and liability for storm chasing. It's already an issue as it is. So I can tell you right now, most of us are contractors because these media companies do not want to put us on employment.
And I'd like to add, what about the ones that do accept
How
it?
difficult is it to become a legacy media? Do you know how difficult it is to get registered with the FCC as an individual? Are there certain requirements that you have to satisfy?
Don't know.
That's a good question. Yeah, does anyone know the answer to that? Because I actually don't.
There's different types of FCC license. This one specifically defines it as a TV broadcast or a broadcast.
Man, sorry, I'm having some signal issues.
So it would have to be specifically with a
good.
television news station, I think, which is problematic to say the least.
Yeah. And that's a good question, Reed. We also got another question from Ohio NWX that asked, what do you guys think about the price behind getting a Storm Chaser license? Being about $500 and then $250 annually. So that I think that was, and then also you could get fined up to $500 if you were supposed to have one and you don't have one, I believe. I don't think they will give that fine out if you weren't supposed to have one and you don't have one, right? But what do you guys think about that? I know, Dan, you were kind of talking about the pricing on these in terms of like the revenue for the government, et cetera. Dan, maybe do you want to weigh in on that, specific angle of it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a downside for the state on this. I mean, it's going to be making them money, and I don't see in their paperwork where they would be expending any money. So
it says I thought it said like the first year their expected revenue was $75,000 to $100,000. In the first year, and then after that, renewals based on like 80% retention, and new licenses was going to be $37,500 to $75,000 a year. So it's not, the state's not making a ton of money on this when they have, $1 million budgets, $100,000. It's like it's not a moneymaker for them, as I see it.
Well, but I'll tell you what, if it's not costing them anything and it's making money, it's a winner for the legislature that drafted the bill.
Yeah, but there was, I don't know that if I have it in front of me, there was an expected amount to set this up because they have to issue licenses. There's costs for that to send those out, the mailings, and there's got to be some kind of coordination of that. So there are going to be expenditures. I don't know what those are and foresee that there are a lot, but there could be a lot of legal expenditures through this as well if it were to pass and go forward.
Well, something I brought up too, and something I'm personally pushing for, like if they shove this down our throats, I'm going to have another way to push through it, because we have police officers blocking roads that don't know what they're doing, and it's no fault to their own, but they're not trained. They're not experienced. They don't have a way to go get this training. Half of them don't even know anything about radar scope or how to look at radar. So my pushback to them the other day was like, listen, if you're going to do this and block roads, why don't you force the training to the people who are doing this to know what they're doing? Therefore, it's going to go back on CLEAT and on the back to the Department of Transportation, or not Transportation, the Department of Public Safety in Oklahoma, to mandate this training to the people who are going to be blocking the roads. And that was my pushback towards them, saying, hey, you're going to have to spend money on training if you're going to do this properly, because then you're just putting people's lives at risk because you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. And so that's part of what I'm saying to them right now is like, you need to get more people trained to know what they're doing, because you're going to find people and not even have a clue of why you're finding them.
Yeah, okay, completely agree. And just really quickly, guys, I just wanted to just quickly break in for just a second, because like you guys can't hear it, but in my ears I've been getting tornado warning after tornado warning. It's super distracting. So I wanted to just quickly show you guys and everyone in the audience that we do have 3 tornado warnings right now. And in southern Kentucky, 2 of them could be dropping something. So, and we also got Storm Chaser Mason Harris that gave 20. So thank you, Storm Chaser Mason. You have been an unbelievable part of this community. But we do have 3 tornado warnings right now in Kentucky. A little bit of a mini tornado outbreak right now. A couple of these, like this one that is for, if I get the counties here, and we're just going to quickly go through each of these 3 ones, and then we're going to go back to the discussion here. But for north central Harlan and southeastern Leslie counties in Kentucky, we have a tornado warning, and that's a pretty good radar signature there, velocity signature of a possible tornado here. All 3 of these are radar indicated. Not much on the correlation coefficient here, but yeah, look at that. There's that hook right there. So we got a possible tornado moving towards Big Laurel in Kentucky. We've got another, oh my gosh, this is my first time seeing these radar signatures, so sorry guys. We've got another possible tornado moving towards Walker and Field in Kentucky. This one is another radar indicated. It includes several counties here, Harlan County, Bell County, Knox County, Leslie County, and Clay County, all in Kentucky. So another possible tornado there. And like that's a pretty broad, that's definitely your mesocyclones right in there. So another possible tornado there. And then just our 3rd warning here is in Tennessee. I just want to go to this one really quickly here. And this one, a little bit less on the velocity side, but this is for Clark Range and Grimsley. This includes the counties of Overton, Cumberland, Putnam, and Fentress. So if anyone is watching in those areas, we've got a little bit of a sneaky tornado outbreak ongoing right now. I think was a confirmed touchdown earlier in Kentucky, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Sorry, guys. Back to our discussion.
I do have a question on the discussion.
Go.
Who's to say, so when they do find a meteorologist to sign off for individual chasers, who's to say once you find one that people aren't going to start trying to pay to get that meteorologist to start, giving, sign off for me. And it's just going to turn into a snowball effect too. This is wide open. How do you regulate that?
Yeah.
Because this is going to turn into a pay to play, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think, well, Reed, I also saw you trying to talk. I think you were on mute right there. But the other thing I wanted to talk about with this, at least the way that it's written right now, is was the original intent of this bill to try to give, because why did they pick TV, right? That was why why did they pick media, right? To basically give to basically give the licenses for like first, because basically the point of this, from what I understand, is to allow people to get to areas, say, that were devastated by a tornado or something like that, where first responders, they need to get there quick because there's people that are hurting, there's people that are in trouble, right? And with everyone knows storm chaser convergence is a problem. That's not a debate. But the question is, was that the goal, to try to get the right people in the areas that they need to be? If that was kind of the original intent, and obviously no one here wrote the bill, so I'm not necessarily attacking anyone here.
I have spoken to someone.
I think the intent will probably change as they rewrite the bill over time, because you have to admit news stations are very competitive, and I know news stations aren't really fond of guys doing live internet broadcasts like Reed and Ryan Hall and the other ones. I think there's a little bit of a competitive issue involved there, where they're seeing their viewership go over to some of those live internet feeds, and let's face it, that has to bother them. But when you're talking about blocking National Weather Service spotters, Skywarn spotters, live TV spotters, and leaving the reporting totally reliable on local sources, I don't really think that's a great idea, because most spotters, the TV spotters, the Skywarn spotters, National Weather Service spotters are the first ones to report this for ground truth confirmation anyways. It's not always news crews.
And the timing, I think, is really suspect too. Right after we had all those layoffs of local media, and some of the parent companies of these conglomerates of local media stations are putting the individual stations under a little bit of pressure. You have to wonder if some of these local media stations came together and said, hey, we're going to try to pass a bill that'll quadruple or maybe even 10x growth in our viewership. they go to the parent company and say, hey, we're going to try to pass this bill. We're going to have a lot more viewership during severe weather. And so I think that, the original intent of this bill is definitely to funnel viewership to legacy media because of the rise of all the internet streamers and the professional storm chasers that have now grown their own distribution platforms.
Yeah, this is heavily weighted towards media, towards television. I think everyone agrees with that. And the individual, I spoke to an individual with a national media company as well, which kind of led me to believe that maybe this started off. And Eric talked about too, is there was maybe some heart behind this and some good intent behind it, with damage zones and the ability for some people to go into those damage zones. And Jordan, Edgar, Reed, Eric, you guys could all attest to drones and the use of drones nowadays and the number of people that are flying drones up in the air. And Dan, you could as well. Like, how many people really know what the heck they're doing? And when you are in a damage zone, are you seeing many people flying? Are you seeing a lot of people flying drones now? That's getting
the storm
carried
chaser
away?
traffic jams are in front of the storm. A lot of times they're not behind the storm. A lot of times the big long lines of traffic, are 5 to 10 miles to the southeast of the storm, where it's been generally recognized as the best spot to view a storm. But once the damage is caused, the roads are pretty much open at that time. So the local news crews should be able to get in there easily, even as is. And research groups, you have those big research convoys. I'm not sure why they would need access to damage, but I know that there's a lot more research going into damage on the neighborhood level, like the end of cul-de-sacs get a lot more damage than along streets, for example. But you could do a lot of that work in the days after the event, too. So I think that the fact that the university is teaming up with local media, it's just that same group that boxed us out of the movie Twisters. They're trying to box a lot of storm chasers out of coverage. But one thing I've noticed is that when the tornado touches down and you're right underneath the occlusion and it's about to touch down, there's hardly any traffic. You don't really see any news crews out there. You see a couple choppers off in the distance. But I think that that's likely the reason. It's media, it's university groups, and I think that they're just trying to gatekeep storm chasing so that they can get more views and make more revenue.
Oh, sorry. I don't disagree with Reed fully. I do a little bit just based on my history of dealing with this the last few days. I think the original person who brought this he had a connection with these lawmakers, and these media people jumped on top of it. So I don't think, based on my knowledge, it wasn't started from the media, but they sure got a hold of it when they found out about it. So, yeah. I don't fully agree with Reed of where it started, and I don't think there's a concerted effort. But now that it happened, I think that's now when you're seeing these people jump on board for their own reasons. And that's based on the information I have. And that's why I'm trying to temper everybody down, because the people that control these words right now are actually reaching out and trying to fix this. And Reed and I had a conversation about this too, where we're trying to, we will all want a piece of this to make sure that everybody is treated fairly, correct, and done the right way. But I really caution the whole community to a certain level of, if you keep attacking, they're just going to say F you, and we're going to do what we want. So we do got to caution that we've got to temper down what we're doing in the public eye, because these people are willing to do the right thing, but at some point they're going to stop. And at some point, we're just going to get tuned out.
Well, they're going to want to do what their voters. They're going to want to do what their voters want. So if we can raise enough public discourse and speak out against the bill on social media and try to let the people know that voted for these politicians, and if they're not behind the bill, then the bill's not going to pass. It doesn't matter what a handful of media chasers think, or self-proclaimed professionals in storm chasing might think. If the common person in Oklahoma, wants access to these live streams, and maybe our live streams when we're storm chasing has saved some lives out there too. I think that everybody working together, news media, the professional streamers out there, the meteorologists, the National Weather Service, everybody plays a role in this before, during, and after the storm. and to give one person priority just because they happen to be an employee of a media group and an underpaid employee at that, it's definitely something that's not fair. But I think that the politicians should do what the voters want. They can't just do whatever the hell they want. If they get a little pushback on social media, I don't think they're just going to pass the bill out of spite. That seems a little crazy.
Yeah, and go ahead, Eric.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I fully agree with Reed. It comes down to the lawmakers, right? So even if this passes through committee, it comes down to each individual, and that's individual right. And then that's lobbying from us all, making the public understand how bad this is. I don't disagree with that at all. But right now, what they're trying to do is really reach out to us, and I don't want them to tune us out.
I haven't had anybody reach out to me.
I can't comment on that. I'm not.
But here's a good point though.
Except for a couple people from Channel 9,
you need to have you need to, if you live in Oklahoma, that's important for you to step up and do something about this, because they're not going to listen to a guy from Ohio because they're not going to
listen to me. I can guarantee you that. Yeah.
So this is why it doesn't matter. You get all these chasers that disagree with it, unless you live in Oklahoma. It's very important, if you live in Oklahoma, that you email and you call your representative and your senator and you read this bill so you know what you're talking about. Don't call them and say, hey, I don't want to get a chaser license. Well, that's not what this bill is saying, right? So make sure you know what you're talking about, and they'll listen to you. But if you're freaking out about it and you don't live in Oklahoma, they're not going to listen to you. I got one thing I want to ask you guys, those of you that do live in Oklahoma. I tried looking up to see how many news stations in Oklahoma had any coverage on this bill, and the only one I found was KFOR in Oklahoma City, and I found in Tulsa Fox 23 in Tulsa. Those were the only two that I found any coverage on this.
Mm-hmm. Eric, you mentioned somebody's against the bill. Do you know what station is against the bill? I'm sure it's probably classified intel, but
yeah. I've been asked not to disclose that information.
Oh, classified.
Yeah, but there is a major station in Oklahoma City that's against it.
Mm. Yeah, that is interesting. That is an interesting dynamic. And well, go ahead, Reed. Sorry.
No,
I wasn't going to say anything.
I was going to say, do you think other states follow if this passes through Oklahoma?
Yeah, that's actually where I was going to go next, because Ohio and WX, and guys, keep sending your questions in the chat. I'm going through and trying to get to each one so we can do a couple here. But Ohio and WX just says, will this lead to? Do we think this will lead to other states following suit? And maybe Warren, I know you kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, but do you want to weigh in on what you think? Like, will other states try to follow suit if something like this were to get passed?
Oh, I have no doubt. And unfortunately, I'm only able to hear Eric for some reason here. I don't know how it's muted.
Really?
I didn't want to monkey with it, so I'm missing some of this great conversation, and I don't want to overlap what anyone else has said. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think Oklahoma, at least my chase experience, and guys like Reed have chased there a lot more than I have, certainly. But generally, I've never had a problem with law enforcement there. And I'd say Texas is good, and a little bit, it can be kind of crazy there now and then, but I have no doubt that other states would follow. And the problem with this kind of legislation is you never know how the next state's going to react. They may be more severe than Oklahoma, or Kansas maybe, or Colorado, or if you go into the deep South, you just never know what kind of bill you're going to have from somebody who says, hey, that's working there. That sounds great. Let's copy it. So I have no doubt this would spread throughout the whole chase region if it becomes law. And again, it's up to anybody to guess how far it could go.
Yeah. Well, I could say I got reached out by a news media source in Kansas, and so that's very, very worrisome to me.
Yeah, Kansas is a bad one.
Yeah. We also had Storm Chaser Daniel Shaw in the chat. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for joining, checking in. And he was basically saying, over the years, I've received many formal requests from NWS Local Emergency Management access live streams for real-time warning coordination. I'm concerned that experienced mobile spotters with stable broadcast links might be stopped while the National Weather Service and other emergency management is actively monitoring these feeds. And I think, Reed, this goes back to your point of, just the yes, chaser convergence is a bad thing, but it's Mother Nature, so there could be 10 storms or 30 storms that were all different. We're all different chasers are going to different storms, and so the more chasers you have, yes, there's more congestion, there's more problems. And I think we all hate chaser convergence. I've never met anyone that says, yes, I want more cars blocking my road and sitting under the overpass, right, Phil? But the more chasers you have, the more likely they are that someone with the camera, with the feed that the National Weather Service can pick up on and say, there's a tornado on the ground. Because we all know radar. I'm looking at radar all day. Sometimes I can say, yes, there's a tornado on the ground. Sometimes I can't. Right. And if I have a live feed from that, or if the National Weather Service has a live feed from that they can see, they can warn that and possibly save lives. And, I don't know, Reed, if you want to weigh in there as well, because I know you talked about that earlier.
Yeah, I just think that there are a lot of clues interwoven throughout this bill that tell you that it's not about safety and about saving lives, but it's about money and viewership and preserving legacy media in Oklahoma, where it's still, one of the very few states where it's very important, and that local media thrives off severe weather coverage. And I love local media as well in Oklahoma, so I want them to survive. And if the bill is required for them to survive, then maybe we need it. But I think we can all survive, if we come up with a bill that's fair. I think an easy solution would just be make the license available to anybody if they get the training. If they have a meteorology degree, maybe it should be an honorary license. If you go, grind through a lot of school, but I maybe you can ramp up the prices like a fishing license. But I think you need to make it available to everybody, and maybe with some training and just having a little bit of a bar of entry where you have to buy a license will hold the numbers down, I think, in the state of Oklahoma, and they'll be able to accomplish their goal. With research groups, there are a lot of self-funded research that don't depend on our tax dollars. Like we here at Team Dominator, we fund all of our own research, and because of that, we're not a candidate to get a license to access some of these areas if our research were to involve damaged areas. But what is to prevent? And I know a lot of people say, oh, we don't have the resources to close down huge swaths of Oklahoma. But what is to prevent them from declaring it an emergency area ahead of, like, say, a moderate or high risk, and only allowing those licensed vehicles out on the roads? It's like a curfew, kind of.
I think Phil said something about that, announcing the emergency or whatever earlier.
Oh,
right?
Really?
He might have. I can't remember. I think he did.
Yeah, no,
That's a good
just talking about that the ability not only to enforce that, but when you don't have it specified in the writing in the bill and it's not specified, it leaves too many options open. And one of the things I was thinking about is, again, those of you that fly drones, you've got an app and there are certain things you have to follow to know if you can fly or not fly and what areas
Federal
are closed
law.
and not closed. Yeah. Why couldn't they do something similar where now it becomes something on an app or something digital that says, no, we've closed that area. We don't need to put a barricade there. We don't need to put a law enforcement officer there. We now just can draw it out on a map, and that's the zone that is officially closed.
Well, the scary thing is that these local media groups are going to be able to put out barricades all over the place, give out tickets. They're just going to be running wild out there.
Reed, if you became one with a license, would you give Phil and I a ticket, do you think?
Yes, I would give all of you guys a ticket.
Bullshit. I call bullshit on that.
Gotta catch me first.
Oh, hey, we got another great question from the chat here. This is actually a really good. So if this is from Henny from the YouTube chat, and sorry if I mispronounced your name, but if people say you have a vehicle where you've got the driver has got one of these licenses, would someone in the passenger seat or in the back seat, right, also would everyone in that car have to have the license? I don't know about you guys, but it's not clear to me, the bill. I don't know if it says the driver or not, but that's a really good question of, like, would everyone in that vehicle have to have that license?
I could tell you from a law enforcement perspective, if you're the driver in a vehicle, well, it's twofold. That's a great
State
question
law.
because if you think about it, if you're driving drunk on a highway, only person driving can get a DUI. but everybody else in that vehicle that may be drunk could get a public intoxication. So that is a great question that needs to be answered, and I didn't even think about that. That's a great point because it's not really specified.
In California, recently with the wildfires, they were requiring everybody in the vehicle to have a valid media pass that matched your license. And if one person in the vehicle did not have a media pass, you couldn't get through. So that's a new thing that's happened. Usually in disaster areas, you just flash the media pass and everybody can get in. But this was kind of a new thing in California where everybody had to have a media pass in the vehicle.
Reed, you're scaring the shit out of me. I just see some teeth and a nose.
I'm going to the bathroom out here.
Oh, okay. Kara asked if you're chasing. You're not chasing her. You come back from fishing, right?
I was kind of chasing. I was up there in the Western Appalachians, but mainly fishing the pressure falls, surface pressure falls.
Oh, cool.
Those gallbladders are sensitive to the surface
Can
pressure.
Warren hear me?
Yeah. Warren, can you hear Jordan? No.
I can't.
Ask Warren to disconnect.
Try to refresh. Yeah, try to refresh. Try to disconnect and reconnect.
I'm trying to laugh when everyone else laughs.
Just
It's funny.
yeah, tell him to
They
leave
could
the
be saying
studio
something
and to
really
come
funny
back.
about me when I'm laughing.
Warren,
I'm trying
try.
to watch
Can you
everybody and just laugh when they laugh.
try to
Hey,
refresh?
Warren,
Try to refresh your feed real quick. Just hit
Yeah,
the
I'll
refresh
try.
button.
Lose me, I'll come right back.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Let me give that a shot.
Yeah.
Wanted him to be able to hear too.
Did we lose
Yeah.
Reed again?
Well, he's probably
he had to
he's
wipe.
using he had to wipe. Yeah. Oh God, my layouts are being exposed. No one pay attention to my layouts. Oh God, we got to go back to this. We lost two people that screwed up my layout. Hold on. All right, we're good now. Okay, so Jordan, were you going to ask a question? We got Jacob M as well. Jacob M, thank you for the $5 there. Appreciate it, my brother. Thank you for joining us here today, guys. Thank you for everyone that's joining us. I think Reed and Warren are going to be coming back, so we're going to continue to talk about the storm chasing bill, or it's not storm chasing bill, but the Senate Bill 158 in Oklahoma. I do want to just quickly, while we're waiting for Warren and Reed to come back here, just check back in with our tornado warnings here that we have. We are only down to one warning, at least from what I can see, and that warning is in Tennessee. So the other storms that prompted the tornado warnings up here to the north in Kentucky, these are all now severe thunderstorm warnings. All of these have a possible tornado tag. So that just means these storms are still tornadic. They still could possibly produce a tornado. I wanted to make sure I hit on these guys because we are a weather show here. We do outbreak coverage. We do severe weather coverage all the time like this. And there was a surprise tornado outbreak that we had ongoing right now in southern Kentucky. But the only warning that we have left is this one over here in northern Tennessee, just to the northwest of Knoxville, moving towards Oak Ridge, moving towards Wartburg and Sunbright. So looks like we got Dan. It looks like we got Warren back. So we'll go ahead and talk back about our bill here. And
Shout out to Kip Metcalf, by the way.
yeah, huge shout out to Storm Chaser Kip Metcalf, who gave a whopping $20 here. Guys, this is for all the people that donated. This is for all the people that donated. Huge donation. Thank you very much. That massive donation. Dance along. Come on, everyone else dance. All right. Okay, so Warren, first of all, can you hear us?
Yeah, and actually, while I was gone, I actually did get my license from Walmart.com. If you go there, they are available.
Whoa! So, guys, we got breaking news here. Apparently, the Storm Chaser licenses are on Walmart.com. So everyone go on over to their website and try to look for it.
They're rolling back the prices.
That they are. So Warren, as we've had this, you haven't heard all of our conversation.
No.
But what are your other thoughts? Like, what are your other concerns on this bill? We kind of talked a little bit about them expanding other states. We talked a little bit about the cost of it. Do you have other concerns just looking through the text on this particular bill, at least the way that it was written now?
Well, I mean, yeah, the language is vague. It needs to be corrected. My biggest concern is having, again, civilians, untrained people running Code 3 down the highway through the cities of Oklahoma City. I think that's dangerous for everyone. I generally don't chase in the Oklahoma City area. So I don't have any skin in this. I don't have any interest in this. That is strictly a safety thing. I think every chaser and everybody in Oklahoma should be worried about. The second thing is the limitations, to limit it just to a very narrow group of people, which excludes 99% of the people who actually report severe weather, is rather crazy. And the third thing is there's other ways to do this, as I discussed earlier, with like they have in California for the wildfires, the equal media access law. And I would even go as far as saying, use more air support. Maybe like in California, they have the National Guard using helicopters there for firefighting and spotting. Do the same thing on the big, moderate, or high risk days. Find a way to get some of the National Guard helicopters in there to be able to use for spotting. There's other solutions to this bill rather than making it hard on everyone and endangering everyone. And it's just common sense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh my gosh, Reed, is that Gizmo? Reed, ask Gizmo what Gizmo thinks.
Oh, Gizmo's against the bill, definitely, because dogs can't get the license.
Veto.
Those are some great points by Warren. I think increasing air support like they do out in California with the fires, maybe add another helicopter, throw some sponsors along the side of it, a fleet of drones. I know at Channel 4, they were talking a lot about having drones, a fleet of drones out there when I used to work for Channel 4 about 10 years ago even. So, and it does sound like Channel 4 was the station that is against the bill. So they're the only station that is against the bill. I just checked with my sources and confirmed that information just now. Channel 5 and Channel 9 all have W-2 employees, so they're able to assume liability. Channel 4, though, is all contract laborers. So it's obviously due to money and liability on why anybody would be for or against it.
And let's interestingly talk about that too, because that's an area that I don't fully understand. I bet probably our chat doesn't understand. So, and also we just got a big donation here from James Pettis, who just said, "You'll never give me a ticket, right, Reed?" So,
I'll give Pettis a ticket.
All right, sorry, James. It's unfortunate, but the liability aspect is something that we. Yeah, exactly. The liability aspect is something we haven't really talked about. So if media, individuals are going to get these passes, do they now have to assume liability or extra liability? Because I'm sure they already do, because the media outlets already have storm chasers, right? Like, how will that work?
It's so confusing because, Warren talks about code 3, responding code 3. Half of the media chases out here in Oklahoma, from experience, already drive like they're driving code 3. And I'm just being honest. We see it happening all the time. So I think it's only just going to add to the level of entitlement to drive even worse. And then it's more risky. The high adrenaline, everything going on there. So continue with your question, but I was just going to add that to Warren's side of things.
Maybe we could just put governors in everybody's vehicle, where you can't go over 65, and
the problem
like that would
with
just
running
fix
code
everything.
3 too, and again, I've done it when I've been embedded with back when I was in the newspaper, we would embed with Border Patrol and local police and people. It gives you a certain amount of a feeling of invincibility when you're doing that. To me, it was crazy. I mean, it was fun because I was 20 something and I didn't really care, but it does give you that sense of invincibility that I think a lot of people don't consider when you're blowing through intersections and going a tad bit over the speed limit. It can be a pretty dangerous thing.
Well, Oklahoma already has laws that says you're not supposed to move with flashing lights other than an emergency vehicle. You can have lights, but you're supposed to be stationary, right? So now that's each state. Each state has a different variation. I remember a chaser getting arrested here not too long ago in Colorado for having red and blues, right? Impersonation of a police officer. So that's a distinction I want to know about, because they're not only if this law goes through, they're going to have to change about 5 or 6 other laws in Oklahoma that I could think off the top of my head that I could pull somebody over for. So it's I don't know about y'all, but I hate it when I got flashing lights and I've ran code in a snowstorm, in a hailstorm, rainstorm on the road as a police officer. I turn them off. You can't see. So this just opens up so much towards issues towards safety that I'm hoping to get addressed here, because the ultimate goal here is to get it axed, and I'm hoping that I'm hoping that this is a step forward that we can just as a community come together, as one voice. How that happens, I don't know, but uh, part of what I'm hoping to do, and it's not going to be through me or anybody else. I'm worried about other states, and at some point, and Warren, me and you talked about this earlier today. At some point, we're going to have to come together as a community and fight these with legal battles, actual lawyers. How do you do that? How do you do that in a concerted effort? I got some people bringing up to me here lately, the last few days, of creating some sort of storm chaser association where your $5 goes towards those lawyers, because I think it's going to come to that point. This is a snowball effect. These other states are going to come into it, and how are we going to be prepared as a community?
Yeah, and just two things too, Inspector Sassy. First of all, thank you for those 5 memberships. So our 5 new members, make sure you try out your new emotes that you got. Check out your favorite emotes. We got a lot of fun ones. We also have got Storm Chaser Daniel Shaw checking in the chat. He was basically saying, I've had a number of occasions where Oklahoma TV weather media have been behind me on a chase. And I have proactively pulled to the side to let them pass. There was no flashing lights, just needed a polite let them jump in, as I'm aware they're providing coverage direct to the viewer. So Daniel Shaw is already, it sounds like people like Daniel Shaw already sometimes do this, because I think that was really the goal of this bill, is to enable that. And it sounds like some people already do that.
We've been talking a lot about the media, but you also got to remember that in this bill are provisions for the research vehicles. And to me, if there was a thing where you had to pick one or the other, I would certainly pick research vehicles.
Yeah.
Over the years, I pulled some of their support vehicles out of the mud with my truck. And whenever I see them behind me, I always yield out and pull over to the side of the road. So I know we're talking a lot about the media, but research vehicles need to be treated a little bit differently in their mobility, and that's something I know we didn't touch upon, and maybe Reed could talk about a little bit more as far as his experience at OU. But I always pull over for them. I don't hesitate to, because they're out there trying to do something that is relatively important.
How close to the tornado do you have to be to actually identify it? So, like a local news network, they don't have to be 100 yards away from it to save lives. And, so a lot of times if they're, 100 vehicles back and a half mile from the tornado, and you can see the tornado touchdown, and the meteorologist has access to radar and can pinpoint exactly where it is, I wouldn't think that there's that huge of a need to jump past 100 vehicles to get a little bit closer to a tornado to stream it live. So I think that's kind of a sign that this bill is more about viewership and about money than about potentially saving lives, and about giving these news networks closer, exclusive access to storms so that people have to watch their feed. But the research groups, are interesting. I'm not sure how much would be added if you arrive on a damage scene and go through a closed road as a research group to look at the fresh damage right afterward. I would think that even the day after, you could inspect the damage and still learn a lot about the science behind damage past, and do a lot of that work in the days afterward. You can use satellite data as well. So I'm not sure how much advantage there even is for a research group. And also, research groups are totally against collecting any kind of data inside of the tornado. They think that the data inside of the tornado itself has limited value, and that really the only data that has value anymore is that's collected outside of the tornado and the environment, a safe distance away from it. So there's been a lot of pushback against that as well. So I would think that even research groups wouldn't really have a need to bypass that long group of traffic if their main priority and mission is to measure data and the environment that the supercell is moving into, because that's what determines supercell and tornado behavior, is the environmental conditions that the storm's moving into and ingesting. So yeah, I think that you can just look at all those different clues and figure out that the bill is motivated by viewership and money for legacy media. And it seems like university research groups are just lumped in and along for the ride.
Yeah.
Can I tap in real fast? I think we have a confirmed tornado also.
We do, yeah. There's a confirmed tornado near Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Yep.
So let me just quickly, I just want to show
near
this.
Wartburg, Tennessee is where it'd be at.
Wartburg. Okay, near Wartburg, Tennessee. Yeah, it's right here. It's moving towards Oak Ridge. This is, and let me move this in the big screen. Just want to quickly cut in with this. This is an observed tornado in Wartburg. It's moving towards Oak Ridge. Tennessee. That is a fairly big city. Actually, my brother worked there, interned there, and this is a pretty strong storm. If you look at it on my guess is, yeah, look, there's a little bit of a debris signature right in there. So we've got a confirmed tornado that's been just confirmed by the National Weather Service, and it is moving towards Wartburg, towards Petros, Oliver Springs, Buffalo. This includes the counties of southwestern Anderson, northeastern Rowan, south central Scott counties, central Morgan County. These are all in Tennessee. So this is a confirmed tornado once again that is on the ground, and it is doing damage here in Tennessee. Just to the north, we had another tornado warning. This is a radar indicated tornado warning moving through Harlan. This is in Kentucky. So go ahead, Jordan.
As far as what Reed was saying too, with research vehicles and tornado damage, I mean, you can go back to Midwest City, Oklahoma. They got hit the nighttime tornado outbreak a few months ago. It still looks like it got hit yesterday. We went there last week. All the damage is still there. So kind of keying off of what Reed said, as far as damage goes, I don't think it's too much of a concern getting in there the second it happens, unless you're trying to do search and rescue. I know it can be helpful in situations where in Rolling Fork, Eric can attest to this super hard. Maybe a couple of others in here. I'm not sure if you were there or not, maybe. But I mean, it was 30, 45 minutes longer before anybody was there to help assist. So that's when, as many storm tracers that you have that understand search and rescue and being able to help, or even have someone there, directing it and making sure people are helpful in their own ways is very important. But you also need to be trained on that too. And I don't think a lot of these chasers that, for this bill, the thing that gets me with this bill is it makes them, you can act as if you're a first responder, but majority of these media chasers, I know we're talking media again, are not going there to be a first responder. They are going there to cover the storm. And yes, they're providing data, but a lot of these are not the same people that you see qualified to understand, is that power line still live when it's down across the road? Is this structure going to collapse on me when I step inside to pull this person out? And am I going to put myself at risk? And that's something I think is the most important aspect of the whole bill, is safety. And they touch on it a tiny bit, but I don't think it's, to me, the safety aspect is way bigger and it needs to be blown up more. And I think there needs to be more provisions in there about training and everything on top of that front.
Yeah,
I didn't see anything about training.
Yep.
Yeah. This came from Bryce in the chat. Does anyone know if there's been attempts like this to pass a bill? Phil, I mean, we had a conversation about this. What was it, like years ago, right, on our podcast?
Yeah, well, it was more it was back, I think, in 2017 or something, but it centered more around having a safety certification, a storm chaser safety certification, to encourage chasers to get safety trained and to get CPR trained, first aid, even EMT, stop the bleed. Because again, if you're a chaser, at some point you're going to come across something where that kind of certification would be helpful. So we had talked about it as if what were some of the benefits you could provide chasers to get this safety certification. And we talked about, give them the option to get through roadblocks, get some certification that would let you do that. But it was more centered around, safety certification, not licensing.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Because I don't think that wasn't spurned on by any state trying to pass. From my knowledge, I don't think any state has tried to pass something like this. I mean, Ohio, this would never come up in Ohio because we don't have to worry about this anyway. There really isn't any storm chasers that chase regularly in Ohio. But
storms go too fast for anybody to catch up to them anyway.
No. There are no storms. There are no storms in Ohio, Phil. There's no blizzards. There's no storms. There's just free parking and, occasionally good football teams. But does anyone else know about, has any other state ever tried to pass something like this?
No, but I just got some information sent to me that I guess somebody watching. There was an attempt after Twister in the 90s to regulate, and it never made it out of committee at Oklahoma.
Okay.
So,
along the similar lines, right?
Similar lines, but it Yeah,
Storm
but it
Chaser.
never
Okay.
made it out of committee, and it was just they said it was post Twister.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So it seems like something people have done this before, but it just, and when we say make it out of committee, that's basically just saying it's got to get out of this committee or committees to get to the floor to get to a vote. So, which is where it's at now. Another question for this group that I have is, so just looking at this bill and talking about the fine, right, of the penalty, and obviously this is just in the form it is in now, but the fine of $500 of not having this license. The way it's written actually just basically says any professional severe weather tracker that doesn't have this license or is found, it's someone that should have a license that is possibly registered for it. Or that they define a professional severe weather tracker as someone in the media or someone as a part of accredited university. So anyone that doesn't have that's past the barricade will get fined $500. But does that also include, because in this definition it does not just include like your average storm chaser who's not a part of the media, who's not a part of a accredited university. I don't see any provision in this bill that says those people need to get fined if they would go past the barricade. But or is it? No.
I actually asked an attorney. My wife's an attorney.
Yeah. Great question.
About this very question. And the problem is going to be when you issue a license where certain people can't get it. In other words, let's say I go to Oklahoma and I'm arrested because I don't have a license. Well, the argument is I can't get a license. I'm not with an FCC registered television station, and I'm not a researcher. So that becomes the problem there is when they start arresting people or fining people in situations where they can't get what's required of them to be legal to begin with. So that opens up a whole Pandora's box of issues with this law, which are, there's quite a few First Amendment.
But they can't, Warren, as it's written,
and a lot of other problems.
Warren, as it's written, they can't, like you, if you don't have a license because you can't get one, you can't get arrested for chasing.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because if you go and look at the interview Senator Mann had with KFOR, it's online. You can look it up. He actually said it was up to law enforcement to enforce this law as they seem fit. And I'm not quoting him exactly, but it was very close to that. So that means, say that a bunch of us are sitting at a gas station ready to go chasing, and an officer comes up and says, "Hey, you guys, you're not licensed, remain here." And let's say we say, there's the greatest tornado on earth going on down the road, let's go. And we get pulled over, theoretically, we could get arrested because we were told not to move forward because we didn't have a license. Again, it's up to all these jurisdictions to decide how that is enforced. That's a scary element of the way it's
right. But
if
correct me if I'm wrong, but if the bill says you can't get a license because you're not legacy media, you can't be arrested for not having a license.
Well, you can be arrested for anything. That's
for anything.
Well, right, but you wouldn't be arrested for not having a license. Like you could get arrested for you crossed that roadblock, or you were
There's no difference, Phil.
Eric, you're a law enforcement officer. You tell me.
Yeah, there's no difference in you going from state to state without a driver's license. You're subject to that arrest in every state. It doesn't matter. It would be the same concept. So just because you don't have a license in Oklahoma to chase, it's just like you not having a driver's license in Oklahoma to drive. It's the same concept.
Yeah. Yeah, because it seems like you would get in trouble for going through the roadblock, right?
Well, that you would, right?
Yeah.
But which I get it, because you would now. If I go through a roadblock right now, I could also get pulled over and arrested for doing that. But that's not being arrested for storm chasing, because I don't have a storm chasing license. That's because I went through a roadblock.
Right.
There's a term where you use in law enforcement is in legal aspects is there's no definition for ignorance of the law. So in other words, just because you don't know or you're not from there doesn't not keep it from being illegal.
Doesn't exist.
So therefore it's illegal. And it doesn't matter. And that's actually written in almost every law in every state. Ignorance of the law does not matter. So if you're coming from another state, you're subject to it.
Okay,
and so
but
that's
I'm not saying I'm ignorant to the law. I'm saying I don't have a storm chasing license. So if how can you arrest me for not having a storm chasing license if I didn't go through a barrier or block, or I didn't,
it's the
right?
same concept. It's just I know what you're saying, Phil. And I get where
I
why it's
don't quite
confusing.
understand that, or that's like an extremely worst case scenario. I just don't want to freak people out or provide misinformation that you now have to get a license in Oklahoma, and if you don't have one and this goes through, you're now going to be arrested for storm chasing, even though you can't. I mean that's
Well,
Well, let's
stretching
calm
it quite a
everybody
bit.
down first. I can tell you
Yeah,
right now, as a law enforcement officer, this law is not going to be something that somebody's going to arrest on. Okay, I can tell you, I've been law enforcement for 21 years. There's not one way that an officer is going to arrest. Now, if you start fighting an officer, start running from an officer, start breaking a magnitude of other laws because of this regular PC probable cause to talk to you, then you're going to get yourself into trouble. But this right here, this $500 fine is a traffic ticket. It's up to $500. So you could get a traffic ticket up to $500 for speeding. This is what this is. It's the equivalent of a traffic ticket. It's not like a huge misdemeanor crime or felony crime. This is a traffic ticket. So,
right.
like, even at that, it's the law enforcement officers in Oklahoma are not going to make a big deal of
That
this.
$500 fine, Eric, is only given to professional storm chasers. If they're not following the law, that's how it's written. Is it subject professional severe weather tracker found to be in violation may be subject to a fine not to exceed $500. It's all based on that professional storm chaser. It's not saying if you're a recreational chaser that can't get a license, you could be subject to a $500 fine.
I wonder if I don't know if it's limiting amateur chasers. That's my question. I think it's just, is it just a benefit to the media chasers can get by roadblocks, can get into places, and then amateur chasers can continue doing what they're doing? Or I think that's the big question.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the intent
Yes.
of the original lawmakers. Yes, Jordan,
Okay.
you just hit the nail on the head because that's exactly was the intent, and that's why this bill is so poorly written. I mean, this is probably the worst bill I've ever seen written, and I don't mean to throw a shot at the lawmakers,
No,
but
agreed.
it is poorly written in so many ways. I can tell you right now, as a law enforcement officer, because you got to look this up. If you're going to charge somebody with something or you're going to write a ticket, you better know this. And so, because you got to meet certain elements for that to be able to continue in court, right? So for me to look at this and I'm going to be like, well, I can't define this. I'm not writing this ticket. I'm not dealing with this. And I guarantee you most law enforcement officers will do that.
The problem I see here, the biggest problem with what we're talking about is for the first time in storm chasing history, this will allow a state to define what a professional chaser is under this bill and what they envision it. So over time, what I see happening is there's going to be a division. You're either a professional licensed TV chaser or you're an amateur. So over time, I can guarantee you that they're going to look at this like, if you're somewhere where you're not supposed to be, what are you? Are you a professional or are you an amateur? They're not going to care that it's only available to TV people. They're going to divide chasers into those two groups. When the law fades away over time, you're either going to be an amateur or a TV professional or I guess a researcher. And that's the way it's going to be looked at. For whatever the end purpose is, who knows? But that's, I think, what will eventually happen.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think when you get those two distinctions, well, there are a lot of some of the best storm chasers I know. And I'm not saying like there's a lot of great storm chasers that work for TV. There's a lot of amazing storm chasers that don't, right? And some of the best ones that I know like don't, they are kind of sole proprietors. They do it by themselves. They've been doing it their whole lives. And that, at least with the definition of what this law would say, the severe professional severe weather tracker that I have outlined above, they would be, in the quote unquote amateur bucket, right? Is at least how this is written, I think.
Let's say, for example, that all the Holiday Inn Expresses in Oklahoma offer a 25% discount to professional chasers only. They're not going to differentiate between who you are. You're either the licensed professional under this law or you're not. And that's a good example. People that have no idea what this law is about. It's a division. You're either a professional or you're an amateur. They don't care. They're not going to go read SB 158 and see what the mechanics are. They're just going to view people like everyone else is. Oh, are you a professional or not? That's how this will eventually, if it passes, I believe this is how people will view storm chasers.
Yeah. So I'm about to have to run here, and I will say this. I'm gonna bring this up. We are trying to have another meeting with these lawmakers, and actually not just the lawmakers, but everybody involved. There's been a concerted effort. I feel like we're going in a very good direction for that. Very open conversations with a lot of people right now. With that being said, Phil, if you don't mind, if with your viewers or whoever, put a list of questions together for me. So if I am able to get back in this room, I can take these questions into the lawmakers and maybe we can get some of these answered, and I will make this public. I'm hoping this works out. That's my goal. But I really appreciate everybody here. And I think, this is what the community is about. I really love that we can get together and talk about this and then put this form out. And I really thank you guys for putting this together. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in exactly 1 week.
Yeah. If we can get there with the winter storm, who knows?
Well, good news. I literally looked at the weather and just kidding. We all look at the weather, but big snowstorm on Tuesday, probably at the beginning of Wednesday, and then clears out. And I think we're golden. So it looks pretty good.
That.
Snow on the ground, but it looks like we're going to have a good time. So
we like that. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, thank you for joining us, Eric. I know the insight that you've been bringing. I know the work you've been doing behind the scenes. So thank you so much for joining. I think, Eric, that was it was awesome. Just a great discussion through and through. So guys, do us a favor. If you do have more questions for Eric that you want to that you want him to be able to bring to the attention of some of the people that wrote this bill, the chat is a great place to put questions, but put it in the comments. Comment on this video. Put comments on this video of the questions that you still have after this discussion, so that I can be able to see those and I can get those to Eric. I think that'll be a great way to kind of do it there. So just put comments on the video, and should be good. Eric, thank you so much for joining us here. Thanks, Eric. And let me go. So let me just go back to our other view here. Just ignore this for just 1 second. And we'll go back to this view, which is there we go. So we did have Storm Chaser Daniel Shaw that weighed in here, and he wanted to quickly talk about, during the 2013 El Reno tornado, a number of storm chasers were effectively trapped by road closures, and they had nowhere to flee to. Daniel Shaw asked, can this bill further increase these risks during rapidly changing conditions? And I think that's a great point.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, because imagine that, right? You have a tornado bearing down on you, and you look and the road, some of the roads, the escape routes, because think about it, right? If you're going to shut down roads using this bill, or trying to just make it available to certain chasers or members of accredited universities, etc., you're not going to be able to doing it. You won't be able to do it effectively right as the tornado is happening, right? That'll be chaos. You'll either do it before or after, right? Go ahead, Jordan.
Yes. I mean, here's a situation. Oklahoma, I've seen it time and time again. I'll use Seminole, Oklahoma as an example in 2022. Going into Seminole, there's a tornado bearing down. We were ahead of it, trying to line it up. And all of a sudden the road's closed. People trying to get the hell out of the way can't get through. People trying to chase it can't get through. And the cops are like, there's a tornado. And we're like, yeah, it's literally coming right here. And you just backed up 40 cars right here in the middle of the highway. And that's what we run into an issue, because you have a lot of these law enforcement agencies sometimes resort to storm chasers. And usually I get asked all the time, hey, what do you think's going to happen today? But then the same people shut the roads down, and then you get that backup. And then El Reno, Dan made a great point. I'm trying to escape. Let's say the tornado shifts directions like they do. Oh, I can't go north now. The road's blocked by highway patrol. And me personally, I'll take my ticket or whatever if I'm going to save my life. But most people are going to panic and get scared because they can't get through, and it causes a big issue. And that's the risk and the assumption of liability I think you take blocking roads too. It's a big issue.
Yeah, I'd agree. Now, we had another great question from the chat. Do you think a similar bill would affect states for hurricanes if said states were to pass something similar? Yeah, that's a
Don't go to Perry,
whole
Florida,
other can of
guys.
worms.
Let's not do that.
That is a whole other, because think about it. With the hurricane, you would be able to do this way more efficiently and effectively because at least a day out, this region could take a direct hit, and they already do evacuations, right? For people that are in storm surge, prone zones or areas that they know they're going to get stormed. So they already do that. But do they shut down entire roadways and only allow certain folks in there today? Like Jordan go ahead, Ward.
They do contraflow. I've actually been caught a couple times in places I didn't want to be, or I did want to be. Contraflow, people don't know what it is. It's like if you have a 4-lane highway, they'll turn 3 lanes for people to evacuate and keep the 1 lane going in. So that's not really a roadblock. I've chased hurricanes since 87 or something, a million years ago. I've never seen that. Of course, I've never had problems with roadblocks because I have both my EMT and my press credentials, but I've never seen them block it to keep necessarily people out. It's more of an evacuation thing. And even this last year with all the hurricanes that I was covering down in Florida, I didn't encounter any of that. Matter of fact, I had more trouble getting out of some of these areas because the roads were blocked and the local police didn't want people driving through the debris. But I think hurricanes are too large of an area compared to, a tornado is a very localized event. I don't really think they could do that for hurricanes, but of course, never say never.
Did you ever go deal with Perry, Florida this last year?
Perry, no, that doesn't ring a bell. No, that doesn't ring a bell.
So majority of Florida, I've noticed when I've been there anyway, it's like you just said, it's fairly easy. Nobody's really blocking anything. Something I experienced, I heard about it before on a hurricane prior. I think it was the one before Helene. I can't remember which one came in before. It was a crazy year. People were saying that Perry law enforcement was trying to kick them out before the hurricane even got there. And so then I was like, yeah, whatever, you hear your chaser stories. And then I was in Perry right before Helene made landfall. And I was parked in a parking lot, just sitting there, just watching satellite come in. And law enforcement came around and I had Corey Hartman on the phone on speaker. And he rolled the window down. He rolls up. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm just, covering the weather for media, whatever. And he goes, oh, you're one of those effing storm chasers. You guys there is a 7 p.m. curfew. You're not allowed on the road after 7 p.m. And I was like, where do I go? Because I'm covering the storm. He goes, got to figure that out. But you're not allowed to sit in this parking lot. And I was like, well, and then everybody got shoved into parking lots at hotels. And then when people would leave their hotel parking lot, they'd literally chase these people down, box them in, watched it with my own eyes, and give them a slip that had the curfew notice on it. And they were enforcing it above no end. But I've never seen that anywhere else. It was just Perry, to be fair. But as far as hurricanes go, it's gonna be a hell of a lot harder to regulate that than tornadoes, as Warren was saying earlier. But outside of Perry, Florida, anyway.
Guys, so I just got called from Phil. He said we made this. I don't know if this is actually going to happen, but the representative, one of the representatives who made the bill, might be joining. So that just happened. So I don't know if he will
That'd be awesome.
That would be
but
awesome.
he might be joining. I don't. He might be joining. I wasn't sure if it was the chat or the actual stream itself, but they actually might be joining the stream. But
big news. If true.
Yeah, breaking news. yeah.
Pat McAfee says, allegedly.
Yeah, exactly. It's massive. Is there anything else about this bill that we didn't talk about that you guys wanted to hit on? I think we hit a lot of the different things about what it is and what it could do and what it could give people the ability to do. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about yet with this bill?
Yeah, I think you had me muted earlier, and tell me if you didn't, when I was talking about not allowing certain groups that are very critical into some of these areas or past roadblocks or, national Skywarn spotters, National Weather Service spotters, volunteer EMS people, some of the internet reporters, blocking them. I would say probably 90% of reports come from those individuals. as opposed to TV stations. So you're basically, if you're only going to allow TV station reporters in these big events or somehow hamper the rest of the people, you're really cutting off people's main sources of information. I mean, when I'm watching these events, when I'm in Oklahoma in a danger zone, I do watch local TV, but I also watch the live feed from guys with Ryan Hall, Reed Timmer, to see what's going on. So I think to limit just TV people to these ground truth events is kind of dangerous in itself, where the public isn't getting the entire picture of what may be going on.
Yeah. And that was something we talked. Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
No, I was just saying I agree.
Yeah, well, that's something we talked about earlier too. About just there's so many. I actually think we if you look 30 years ago, the source of weather was like a couple of different sources, right? Of course, you had the National Weather Service. You had everyone's favorite Weather Channel. We all loved the Weather Channel local on the 8 music. I think we all reminisce those days. Since then, I feel like weather has really diverged instead of converged, where you now have independent storm chasers, independent people like a Ryan Hall. We're trying to do something similar here at the Stormfront Freaks with Outbreak. But you have all these different people that are all reporting on weather in some way, whether they're there at the scene showing you the tornado, whether they're looking on radar, showing you the radar images and showing you live chaser feeds. There is so many different ways that you can get and see weather, which is so important because that is ultimately what leads to action, right? That is proven social science that the most effective way by far is not sending a tornado warning to someone's phone. It's saying, okay, here's a tornado. This tornado is coming towards you, right? Tornado warnings are great, and the tornado sirens are great, and they're crucial parts of warning. But the most effective way by far is showing someone a visual of that tornado. And so, yeah, I mean, go ahead, Ward.
You're absolutely right. But the problem with ground truth is I chase and I also stay at night in these locations. And if you have, if I hear a tornado warning, I'm generally not going to run out and look for it, even though I'm a storm chaser. I'm going to want to know with the radar, see where it is first before I do something stupid. But that's the problem with ground truth, is that if you have a tornado warning or a tornado emergency and it's for your area, you're much better off taking your family and putting them in a shelter than wasting time going to the TV and start switching channels, going and looking for it.
For sure.
I mean, for me, I would want to take that precious time and go into some kind of shelter. So to some degree, once you're in a warning, once you're in some kind of emergency, ground truth is great, but your time is often better spent getting family to shelter. So it's a little bit overrated nowadays. We have CC drops, we have velocity scans, we have helicopters. There's all kinds of ways to confirm a tornado. So I think we need to get away from this thing where it has to be live right there in the circulation to prove that it's a tornado.
Completely agree. No, I completely agree with that, and I think that is where a lot of streams and just the more you can educate someone about radar, right? Just honestly, like that's what I do. That's what I do with all my friends. I'm like, hey, they always ask me what the best weather app is, and I'm like, just get radar, guys. Like, let me show you how to use this, because if the public could use radar and they not only just seeing, okay, is it raining where I'm at, or how long is it going to rain for, but if they could be able to look on radar and say, hey, there's a tornado warning just to my west, and I know, even though I'm not in the warning now, I know these storms are coming for me. So I don't have to watch TV. I don't have to be in tune with the weather to be able to know, okay, there could be something coming for me. And obviously that's a lofty goal, and that's a very lofty goal. But that's my goal. Whenever I get on stream, I'm trying to teach people, and I think that should be our goal as meteorologists, is try to get as many people as knowledgeable as they can, so that they don't have to depend on that big tornado that they see right there to take action.
Guys, I'm going to step away for a minute, but I'll be right back.
Hey, Warren, hold on before you do that. So I got reached out by.
He gone.
It's okay. I got reached out to by one of Fetgatter's Representative Fetgatter's people. He wants to come on with us.
Oh.
if we can get him a link. He's finishing dinner, and I'm just waiting. I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but it'll be shortly. I just texted him directly, but one of his people reached out to me. And so if we can get him a link sent to me via text, I will try to get him on. At least
you want me to send
have
that to him,
direct
Brady?
from the.
Yeah. Do you got that link, Jordan?
I have it.
Okay,
I'll
cool.
text it. I just text it
Okay.
there.
I am going to step away as this happens, but I'll let you guys keep talking. But I'm going to try to stay on here and try to make this happen to get him on with you guys. So
yeah, cool.
Sounds like that's kind of.
I just texted that to you, Eric.
Okay.
Just copy and paste that link.
Yeah, I'll send it to him. That's the only reason I jumped back on. As soon as I got off.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. This is crazy. This is cool. I love that. While we're waiting on him, we can also talk about
tornado
our tornado
warning
warnings.
for northeastern
Well, we're
Lee
getting another
County
one
in
in right now.
southwestern
I'll let this
Virginia,
play.
central Scott County in southwestern Virginia,
Jordan, I'm going to step away for
southwestern
like,
Wise County in
15
southwestern
seconds,
Virginia.
Quick bio break.
You're good. I'm going to take over quick. I was going to ask Dan a
Yeah,
question.
just go ahead, take over. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You can talk about the tornadoes too.
I was going to ask Dan a question that I don't know if you saw Daniel Shaw's question to you earlier. But he was going to see if you could amend this bill, what would you change, add, or remove? We haven't really heard too much from you yet tonight, so I'm curious.
There's a lot that I would change and remove.
Yeah.
I mean, if the only option is we've got to keep this bill alive, what would we do to change it? I would have to have a pretty big eraser.
I agree with you. What's one of the pieces of it that you disagree with the most?
How they have very easily carved out a large segment of the folks that are needed on a storm. The first and the largest group is Skywarn spotters. They're volunteers, ham radio operators that are spotting for maybe a county emergency management. Just the normal people that are out there, aside from amateur chasers and people trying to make a quick buck off of a video. I mean, there are groups and people that belong out there that are being carved out.
I agree fully too. I think I've hit on plenty of my thoughts on it, so I don't want to ramble more, but I agree fully on that, because storm spotters are a huge, obviously outside of your few and far between, majority of the storm spotting group is very crucial to everything. So I have to agree with you there too.
And I've never made $1 off of any picture or video. Not that any of mine were great, but I'm not in it for the money. I'm a spotter at heart.
Right. I think we all start that way, and I think it's how I'll always be. That I think all of us who love weather are always going to be spotters at heart. I think too. I think that's the most important thing to fall back to, is your roots of it is being spotting is important.
Yeah, but one thing
that's extremely important.
One thing that stood out to me though is at the very end of the Senate bill, where Section 7, they want to implement it in July of this year, and then Section 8, they justify that by declaring a state of emergency, and then that's just something that really stood out to me.
That's a good point. Good point out there.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry. So just really quickly, guys, just want to hit on these tornado warnings that we have here, and while we're waiting on Eric, and I think Eric was sending the link. Jordan, did you send him the link, by the way? You sent
him the
link?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we've
so
got
we're waiting on
in the back.
Oh, we do? Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll bring him in. We'll bring him in just a sec. I just saw him. Okay. So we do have someone backstage. I just want to quickly hit on these tornado warnings really quickly, because we just have been getting barrage after barrage of tornado warnings all night long. This first tornado warning here, this is in Tennessee. This was that confirmed tornado warning. It now includes the city of Knoxville. So Knoxville, Tennessee, you are in a tornado warning. Clinton, you are also in this warning. Claxton, Powell, some other cities there. This warning goes all the way almost to Newport, Tennessee. So If you live in the counties of Central Anderson, Knox County, Jefferson County, Southwestern Cocke County, and Northern Sevier County in East Tennessee, we have a tornado warning coming your way. 2 more warnings up here. These are in Southern Kentucky. We've got this warning here. Both of these are radar indicated warnings. Includes the towns of Lee County, South Central Lee County. And sorry, this is in Virginia. Okay, so this is just crossed the state line then into Virginia. And then Pendleton Gap. We've got another tornado warning for Lee County, Scott County, and Wise County. And this is in southwestern Virginia. So this just crossed the state line here. We've got 2 radar indicated tornado warnings. And it looks like whoever's backstage is now gone, unfortunately. But I don't think whoever was backstage was actually the co-author of the bill. It was someone different, so I'm not sure. So if you are listening, whoever's Eric, really quickly, we just had someone backstage, Brandon Wellis. Does that name sound familiar to you?
I think he's one of the people that actually brought up the bill.
Okay.
But
he was there. He left.
Okay, good. I think he was checking the chat. I just got off the phone with Representative Fetgatter. He's coming on, 100%.
Okay.
It's just a few minutes. So Scott Fetgatter is his name. Okay. And I'm telling you guys, I think this is going to help a lot, him coming on.
You do have me back, right?
Yeah, we got you back, Warren.
All right,
yeah.
Perfect.
Warren, you did track that the representative is coming on with us. Can you not hear me?
Warren, can you hear Eric?
Say something, Eric.
say something, Eric.
Representative Fetgatter is coming on.
Can you hear him?
A new
No.
severe thunderstorm warning has been issued.
He still can't hear me.
No, thunderstorm warning.
Do I need to?
A new flash.
Try to refresh again. Yeah. Try to refresh
let me
again.
see if this works. Let me try to refresh.
So weird. That's so weird. You might be able to check his just in case you haven't muted. We got Outbreak. The storm chasing game is a new member of the YouTube channel. Thank you for becoming a member. Outbreak. Go ahead and check out some of those emotes that you got. If
we want, Daniel Shaw is wondering if we can probably throw him on here too.
Yeah, throw him on. 100%.
I'll throw him a link.
Yep.
I'm gonna finish
Outbreak
eating.
the member. Yeah, go ahead. We'll bring Warren back, guys. Just want to thank everyone for joining. So we're waiting. I believe it was the co-author of the storm chasing bill in Oklahoma. We're awaiting him coming on the show here. So while we're kind of awaiting, we just had a long discussion. If you are just tuning in now, we had a long, really productive, really surprisingly cordial. I was expecting more spice in here, but everyone was very respectful. So I never had to play my break. Thank goodness, right, Jordan? Never had to play my break.
Yeah, no, we had a couple little things in there, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We had a couple like yellow card, red card. It was going to be really fun, but everyone was so cordial that I never had to play it. So thank you guys. If it is your first time here, guys, we're the Stormfront Freaks. I'm Stormcat 5. We've got, you guys all know Storm Chaser Jordan Hall. Everyone knows Agent Dan Wallace. Of course, everyone knows Warren Faley. Warren, it's your first time joining us, I think. You got to come back now for the podcast. But we've been talking about this bill for probably the past... Yeah, we got to have you on. We've been talking about this bill probably for the past 2 hours. Had a great panel. We had Storm Chaser Reed Timmer as well that joined us. And if you want to go back and watch that will all be, you can either rewind that or just, once we publish this video, once this stream is done, you'll be able to rewatch this on our YouTube channel here. We also are tracking these tornadoes, these tornado warnings that have just basically come out. I mean, we had some sort of idea there was going to be some sort of outbreak today, but nothing like what's going on right now. So we've got a couple of tornado warnings that we're tracking while we're waiting on the co-author of the bill to join us here. But we had a lot of great discussion, guys. I think we came to a point where we were all aligned about a lot of the different things. I think everyone in the chat brought up some great questions, and I think we got to a good point. But this will be interesting. So, Brandon, I'll go ahead and Brandon, do you want me to bring you in? You're backstage, or are you here to just kind of watch?
I'm here to. I'm waiting on Scott to get in, but if you guys
have
questions to ask me, feel free.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll leave you backstage for now, but thank you for joining, and then we'll kind of bring you in with Scott. Does that sound like a plan?
Yep, that'll work.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Brandon, real quick.
What's up?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Hey, so I'm just trying to figure out what level of because I didn't really talk to you. I appreciate you reaching out to me and making this happen.
Yeah, no problem.
He says that link
Absolutely.
is not working, Jordan. Okay, it
Weird.
popped up. So I'm just
Oh,
kind of
there you
curious,
go.
Brandon, how you got involved in this, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you about it, but
Yeah. So I mean, I obviously seen the bill come out, and it's been a big debate. I mean, there's pros and cons to it. The bill was drafted basically very vague, but there was a time and a deadline that had to be met. There's still a lot of murky waters around this. Of course, I chase for the media. I chase for KOTV here in Tulsa. So I'm tied in with Griffin Communications. So I see some pros to it and I see some cons to it. So I mean, if you want my take on it, I'm willing to tell you how I feel about it.
Yeah,
let it rip.
let it rip.
Yeah. So I agree. The bill is here. Hang on a second. Let me step out. My wife said I'm being too loud.
You're
I'm
good.
to sleep. So so the bill's very vague. There obviously is still a lot of things that need to be worked out. I don't see this being everyone's saying like we're going to be able to run code 3 whenever the hell we want. That is not the case. That there is going to be way more stipulations around being able to go into EM mode than just being able to run code. There's going to have to be some training involved, like evoke training. You may have to be medically certified, stuff of that nature. So I've been storm chasing for 24 years now. I've been with KOTV for 10. And there have been instances, obviously our market does depend on our viewers. That's just how it is. So there have been instances where if we are, let's say we're on a tornado warn storm, or a storm that's in the tornado in progress, going through a highly populated area, whether it's Oklahoma City or Tulsa or wherever it may be, when we have to sit at an on-ramp or we get stuck in gridlock traffic, being able to have the option just to get around a little bit of congested traffic. It's not designed, the bill is not designed for storm chasers to be able to blow code 3 past everybody else. That's not how the bill is designed, at least from what I've talked to Scott about. This also doesn't pertain to
hey, Brandon.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Scott's on now, so which is great. I really appreciate you, Brandon. But
yeah,
I think we're gonna let him jump in on here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And Scott, first of all, I just want to welcome you to the stream here. We just kind of switched windows, so thank you for joining, Scott. I believe you were one of the co-authors of the bill, right?
That's correct. I actually have the House version, and I'm the House author in the Senate on the Senate bill.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for joining. We were just having I was trying to provide open forum here just for both sides to come on and talk about the different opinions that are on there. I don't live in Oklahoma, so I'm in Ohio, and we don't, we do a little bit of storm chasing here, but we don't really do much storm chasing here. But it's just trying to provide an open forum to talk about this bill, and we had it up and we were looking at kind of the latest version, at least that I had. From your perspective, right? Like, what are some of the, have you been watching the stream at all, or is there anything you want to just say first of all about this bill, or where kind of like where it came from, or kind of the goal?
Sure. And before I say anything, I just want to tell all of you thank you, because I do live in Oklahoma and I've lived here all my life. I actually am a huge fan of your profession. Always have been. I am a guy. I'm the guy that will jump in my truck if the storm is close, and will run down the road and follow it and see if I can see the tornado. I've been here 56 years and I've never seen a tornado, but I do appreciate and value the work you do, and I don't care what anybody thinks or says. What you'll learn on this call tonight, I'm an open book. There's no question off limits to me. But I'm just, I'm just a blue collar guy that got elected. I'm no better or special. I was asked to run this bill because I actually last session had asked some people around the Capitol if they knew any storm chasers that might be willing to let me ride along with them because of just my since early childhood fascination with what you do and weather events. And so when the bill was requested by some people, they asked me if I would run it because they know that I've been in the legislature for 8 years. I'm a conservative Republican. I don't believe that we need more laws. But this one made a little bit of sense to me, and it was optional. It was not ever intended to be a mandate. It was never intended to keep anybody that chases. I would kill anything that ever would. You have to. And so I kind of slumbered back in my recliner after a long of talking to storm chasers. But no, I'm willing to answer any questions that you have. But what I want you to understand about the legislative process, we have deadlines that we have to, and whether your bill is ready to be passed through the process or not, the clock does not 4 months long. There are over 1,000 filed.
Yeah, and Scott, you're breaking up just a tad.
Let me see if I can, if that's better. Let me.
That's way better.
That's way better.
Let me check real quick. Make sure I'm on Wi-Fi. Hold on just.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
All us storm chasers fight Wi-Fi, so it's okay. We understand.
And Scott, I'll just say this: I'm storm chased too, and I haven't seen a tornado either. So you're not alone. You're not alone. We're still going for it. But
we may be the lucky ones actually, but
yeah.
So I've been in the legislature for 8 years. This bill was totally optional. It was never intended to stop anybody from being able to chase a storm. I don't care if you come over here from Germany and you have somebody that takes you sightseeing on a stormy night. I don't care if you're a guy like me who runs out to the front porch to see the storms. I don't care who you are. I would never even consider taking away somebody's God-given inalienable rights to jump in their vehicle and go chase a storm. That has never been a thought in my mind. And if I thought that this did that, I would personally pull the Senate and the House bill, and I have the leverage to be able to do that.
That clears up a lot right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And because we were looking through this bill, and obviously I think the version that I'm looking at was the one that I think was introduced, or at least the one that we were looking at. So it might be old because I know it's been, you guys have been talking about it in committee, right? But I'll just open it up here to this group. Does anyone have any questions for Scott? I know we've been having kind of in-depth discussion about some of the different terms in here, professional weather tracker, media outlet, qualified institution of higher education, significant weather event. Does anyone have any questions off the top of their head for Scott about this bill?
Yeah.
So I want to go first.
Real quickly, can you speak to the emergency vehicle portion of the bill, both either House or Senate?
Yeah, so the way this was approached to me, and going back to kind of those deadlines, just so you'll know, is, you know, since I'm more tenured in the legislature, I get a lot of people ask me to run a lot of pieces of legislation. I'm allowed 8 bills to be heard. Um, a lot of times, this early in session, you have a draft language is basically what you really have. And then once session begins, which was Monday of this week, that's when we really start diving deep into these bills and determining who doesn't like what, who likes what can we keep, change, what do we need to fix. So the way the bill was presented to me was, can we get emergency vehicle status for certain storm chasers so that we have uninterrupted, basically, access into areas and through areas where a storm may pass? And so when I began to think about this, and can we run emergency lights? That was the nutshell of the bill right there. And so when I began to think about this, I have to think about law enforcement. I have to think about paramedics. I have to think about firefighters. I have to have conversations with all of these groups. So we put a piece of language out there, and it's not uncommon that we put something out there that is a work in progress and needs a lot of work still be done. But I have deadlines that I have to hit. So I have to put out there what I have. And because it has to become public once I file it, and you get it, you read it, and you're like, whoa, this is all jacked up. And I know that there are things in this bill that still need work, but it's a starting of a conversation. Look at it that way. We started a conversation on Monday, or
Yeah.
actually probably about last Friday is when I think I got the first call on this. And like,
It was probably a fun weekend, right?
yeah, it's I've been on the phone with storm chaser, hey, sometimes till midnight or 1 o'clock in the
Oh
morning,
my gosh.
and that's okay. I don't mind doing that because people need to understand what we're doing, and I believe in that. I believe that I was elected. Um, I have a district that I serve, and those are the people that elect me and I answer to. But I write laws that affect people all across the state. So I just happen to believe that it's my job to communicate with anybody who really wants to talk to me about a piece of legislation. So
Yeah.
Monday we really started a conversation with these bills is what we did. And if you all would kind of put that in your mind, is okay, this bill is the start of a conversation. And that conversation, I'm probably one of the most accessible legislators you'll ever meet in your life.
Well, yeah, you hopped on our show literally like that. I mean, so yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, so I want to hear from you all. Now, I will tell you that the crux of the bill, if in my opinion, so we've had a couple of, you know, markups on this bill this week. Well, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that. And then, I mean, we were talking about maybe it should require CPR training, maybe it should require medic training to get the license. And then today I had to kind of pull it all back and rein it in, and I had to remind everybody I have one intent with this bill. And I'm going to tell you a quick story after I tell you the intent. My intent is that if you qualify for this license, we can discuss who qualifies or doesn't qualify here in a little bit. But if you qualify for a license and you purchase the license, which is totally optional, and if you don't purchase a license, it doesn't matter if there's a group of you sitting in a parking lot and the police pull up and you can't get out, or they try to chase you down and arrest you. That has nothing to do with this bill. All of that stuff is just hypothetical situations. Those situations can currently happen. But the intent of this bill is, when my meteorologist is on my television, because I'm a little older, I don't do the internet. Now my son is in his 30s and he probably watches some of you all when the storms come through. I'm watching them on TV. I'm watching the storm spotters, and I'm watching hook echoes. I'm watching all the things go on. And I want to make sure, because I've seen it happen. They're talking to a storm spotter who is sitting at a 4-way intersection at night at a 4-way traffic light. All 4 lights are red, waiting to change. Or the two opposite directions are green. He's waiting to get through that light because he's obeying the law and the traffic laws. Every second that you all sit at a traffic light is a second that storm is moving away from you, and that somebody is potentially in harm's way. I want you to be able to pull up, yield at that light, make sure it's safe to cross, and run the red light without the fear that law enforcement is going to pull you over and give you a ticket. That was the intent of the whole bill. I really don't. So I pulled out the CPR, I pulled out the medical stuff, because my intention is not for you to pull up on a scene where a storm has passed through and become a medic. My intent is that you can pull through that scene and continue to follow the storm and let the emergency responders take care of that. I realize that you all see things that I've never seen in my life. And there's probably times when you feel the need to stop and help somebody. That's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, the bill and the legislation and the intent of the legislation is that you can pull up, you can yield, make sure it's safe to go on through. That is the intent of the bill. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. Because I've talked to the Department of Public Safety twice this week. First time, kind of explained what we were doing. Second time, they told me they were not going to support the bill. And I responded, so you're not going to support the bill, meaning you don't even want to have a conversation. You're not even open to conversations. No, we're not. We're not interested at all kind of conversation. And those people that know me know that I am all about the conversation. So a pathway to yes is what I'm always looking for. And so no just doesn't set well with me without conversation. It may end up there, but you got to talk. I was sitting in my father's home with my wife back in, I believe it's about June, and I hear the sirens go off in my hometown. I'm watching the weather. It's a really bad stormy night. There's not a single watch in my hometown. There's no tornado warning in my hometown. The sirens go off. I look at my wife and I said, "Why is that the sirens going off?" Yeah, it is. It's the sirens going off. I'm watching the news. There's no conversation on the television about a tornado potential on the ground or in my area. I don't even think they were talking about rotation in my area. So the sirens go off and then they cut them off. And shortly after that, it pops up a tornado warning in my hometown on the news. So I pay real close attention to this stuff. A little town just west or east of me, about 5 miles as the crow flies, was hit by an F1 tornado. Tore up some trees, blew off some roofs and some shingles. It was a lot of work for the community, but fortunately, nothing was really destroyed and nobody was hurt. But when they asked me to run this bill, I thought about that evening, and I didn't realize what had happened until Tuesday, when one of my constituents called me and said, the reason they blew the sirens is because I am a radio operator who have chased storms since the 70s. And I saw the tornado chasing it, and I called it into the National Weather Service, and they blew the sirens because they alerted our local area emergency. And that was before it ever hit the screen on TV. So this bill is not meant to hurt anybody or slow anybody down or cause somebody. I mean, you wouldn't believe the emails and I will tell you this: I've gotten a few emails from storm chasers that I don't know if I really do want them storm chasing for fear of road rage that they might have while they're out there.
We probably agree with you.
Yeah, we agree with you on that. Yeah, we agree with you on that, Scott.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story behind it. But anyway, for you.
Hey, Scott, I do have a question for you, and it's been brought up a lot. Since I last talked to you a couple of days ago, was the influence of the local media, right? We're getting a lot of pushback from people, especially after Jeff and I had a conversation with you, that this is being pushed by some local media to help their TV numbers. And so my question to you is, if that's the case and their influence in this, what influence is that, and what safety regards do you have for people outside the state?
Yeah, so here's what I'll tell you. The way I operate as a legislator, I have a specific group of people that will ask me to run legislation. That could be one person, or that could be a group or an association of people similar to yourselves. And whoever asks me to run the legislation, I feel obligated to at least make sure that they are engaged in every aspect of the conversation going forward. And I will tell you that it was a local media group that requested the bill. For TV ratings or not, I don't know. I would just tell you from a common sense point of view, it makes sense to me that we should have a discussion about storm chasers being able to get through a specific area to make sure that they can keep up with the storm when they are reporting to my grandparents, my kids, anybody in my family. So it was worth the conversation. Now, there's been a question about internet groups, and some of you have really large followings, and that's great. I mean, TV stations are looking for views. You are looking for views and interactions on social media. I mean, if I'm just being very honest, we all love what we do. But at the end of the day, whether we're in news media, in Oklahoma, news media is weather is what sells the television news station. On the internet, views is what sells and gains you all the notoriety to receive potentially money from the internet companies, depending on views and those kinds of things. So nothing changes, Eric, about whether you live in state or you're out of state. The U.S. Constitution would not allow me to prevent an out of state news network, university, or research facility, or anybody that qualifies for the license. The U.S. Constitution would not allow me to stop you from obtaining the license.
So, quick question too. I know in there it talks about television station licensed by the FCC for broadcast transmission and whatnot. What about some of the, media networks, apps, whatever out there that might not have an FCC, but there's still a huge, media player getting the news out there? How does that work for those types of broadcasts?
It's tricky, because I do know that what you do is a value and it's a service, and it reaches a lot of people. So I'm open to the conversation and the dialogue, and there may be a solution. I haven't figured out what that is yet, but I have two options. I either keep the scope that's allowed to apply for the license really narrow, or I broaden the scope and I make the requirements that you have to meet to actually obtain the license narrow. And the reason for that is, I will say, I can't see that it's a good thing if you have 1,000 people get this license and they're running red lights and through storm battered towns and those things. I don't think that is good. You guys can tell me otherwise, and I'm certainly going to listen. But I haven't figured out how do you broaden this out, because I don't think it's right to say, for example, well, this person has 400,000 viewers, so they should be able to qualify for the license. Well, then I'm saying the person with 20,000 viewers that just hasn't gotten as much traction. Now I'm saying that those 20,000 viewers aren't worthy of getting the information at the same level as the guy who has 400,000 viewers. So it's a little trickier if if I'm just honest.
Wouldn't it be? I've covered a lot of the fires in California, and I've been to most of the bigger tornadoes in Oklahoma City. The one in '99, 2013 was on the air live with Fox News. So I have a long history of covering these events in Oklahoma and all over the country. One of the things that's worked in California beautifully with no complaints is their equal access law for the media, which I believe in this case would solve everything overnight. That is, the licensed media from anywhere that are actually people who have credentials to be able to get into these scenes. I think that works great in California for fires. And those roads, you would not believe how crowded they are during fires. When I was out here for the most recent fires, we had no trouble getting access to go right up to the fire, to be able to help people. I'm also an EMT. So I would think that something like an equal access law would solve all the problems without allowing civilians to run code 3 and jeopardize other people, which the statistics show when people are running code 3, there's a 5 times higher incident of serious accidents, including fatal accidents. So I'm just wondering, would that be something to consider? Would be something like they have in California with a media access law?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Warren. And I'm open to looking at what options are out there. I don't necessarily look. I'm a legislator. I'm not a storm chaser. I'm not a law enforcement person. I don't run code 3s. I don't even really know what that is. Really, all I am is a vehicle. Okay, I'm a vehicle that says this is something we should do or we shouldn't do, and I want to have the conversation about it, and how whatever the end product is will be. I can guarantee you one thing: whatever the end product is, it will be a collaboration of a lot of different groups of people. The best bill in the world, the best law in the world, is always a law where people aren't completely happy and they're not completely mad, because you actually talked to a lot of people. Everybody got something they wanted in a law, but not anybody got everything they wanted. Because if somebody just gets all they want, then that means that you weren't fair in the process of vetting the situation. Again, I'm not real big on necessarily running a lot of laws. I think we run too many laws, and every law that we run, whether it's here or California or Missouri or Idaho or Iowa, every law we run takes a little bit of freedom away from everybody that it affects. And so I'm not opposed to having conversations as it pertains to this particular bill. What I would love to see happen is the rhetoric calm down. I have a hard enough time trying to sort through this, about that I'm trying to, I was told I'm un-American. I mean, all sorts of things. And what I need storm chasers to have conversations with me that are rational and well thought out, and let me kind of be the guy that buffers through it. And because we're going to have a hard enough time figuring this out with Department of Public Safety, the firefighters, emergency management, all these other groups that are, going to be upset because you're moving over on their turfs. And I got to be honest with you, you guys don't have the greatest reputation when it comes to riding up and down the highways in the city streets in a storm. I mean, I'm being told these people are reckless, they're crazy. We know what they do is important, but they're out of control, and that's the feedback I'm getting. So I'm having to kind of work through this. But if California has something that we need to look at, I'll take a look at it. California laws in Oklahoma are not the greatest thing to talk about, if I'm quite frank with you.
That's one law that works, though, I believe.
Yeah.
For everybody.
And so I'm open to the discussion.
Yeah,
I think
just really quickly, I just want to pass along. There is a confirmed tornado that's on the ground near Bean Station, Tennessee. So just wanted to pass that piece of information on, that we do have a confirmed tornado that's on the ground. We won't talk more about it, but if you do live near Bean Station in Tennessee, know there is a tornado headed your way. So go ahead.
Other questions I can get.
Daniel, I know you got a question.
Thank you, Eric. Scott, pleasure to meet you, or should I say g'day. I'm actually from Australia, believe it or not.
You must have saw the tornado warning in Tennessee and took off for it.
Yeah, 15 hours just to get to Los Angeles. I'm in a unique position where I work for both media and I've volunteered for an ambulance in Australia for over 10 years. I've seen disasters. I've seen cities relocated. I've seen towns affected, people's lives destroyed. Whilst tornadoes can be beautiful, they can be tragic and deadly. They can cause a lot of heartache. I think with any storm chase, and it's understandable, obviously there's an excitement with chasers. You've got seasoned professionals here. Every storm chaser should be a spotter. Public safety, no matter what license you have, what age you are, what experience you have, must always come first. The communities you visit. It's a privilege to visit the communities of America, whether it be from South Carolina to Montana. And I think there's a duty of care from everyone to report what they see. If they have the ability to respond within their scope of training, do so, if safe to do so. I don't think, in my view, I mean, I've driven code, which means lights and sirens in an ambulance as a forward command in Australia once. And people go, was it exciting? No, it's nerve-wracking, because if you crash a car, it's 42 pages of paperwork. I think, if anything, my view is, and I've seen this before in Oklahoma when I'm chasing and spotting in Oklahoma, I've had the K9 and 4 coming behind me. I've actually pulled to the side. They're not running their lights. I know they're broadcasting live. I've seen them. I know they have a much wider broadcast audience, your traditional audience, if you will, Scott. And I've actually pulled over to the side. They're not running lights. I've given them right away because I prioritize their needs and the broadcast needs. But at the same time, I've also broadcast live straight into the National Weather Service for live ground truth. And that's done with great privilege to do so from Colorado all across the country. And to do that as a foreign citizen and provide that resource to people and communities I care about is a great privilege. And to also see our colleagues do that. I think, in my view, the only cars that should be authorized per your recommendations or your thoughts should actually be just the news stations only. Just the news stations. I think running or having certification for not any more than 50 storm chasers in the same proximity, running lights, running code, anything more than 8 police cars in one spot running code is dangerous. And they're trained professionals that know how to drive. I'm sure Eric will back me up on this. Doing pursuits, they're trained in high-speed driving. Storm chasers are great around storms. They're not used to driving code, which means driving lights and sirens. Intermixed with bad visibility, all the dangers that come inherent with storm chasing, I think the only people who should be authorized under the bill should actually be the news stations to give priority traditional news coverage. And anyone who has a media credential, whether it be online reporting or TV station reporting, with a media ID just gets access if there's a roadblock post-disaster. And that way you have maybe 4 or 5 vehicles to complement first-line coverage, and that feeds back to the National Weather Service. Having 50, 100, 200 vehicles authorized lights is a recipe for disaster, unless they're trained, even if they're trained professionals. That many vehicles running lights in any conditions would be a disaster. So it should be limited to just the traditional news stations to get first level coverage, and then media chasers, streaming chasers, follow the road rules, drive to the road conditions, and if they need access to the scene to report on, they're given access as they would be normally, and they wouldn't need licensing. That's just my view from what I've seen, but I've chased from everywhere from South Carolina to New Mexico and to Canada.
Yeah,
and I'm here for 3 months every year for the last 15 years. I'd like to hear your views, Eric, on what would happen if you got 50 people driving lights.
Well, I can tell you a lot of police departments across the nation have limited their pursuit policies to 2 vehicles for that reason alone, because of the amount of danger it is. And it's something, Scott, that I had planned on talking to you about on Tuesday, is that aspect of things, coming from a different law enforcement, a friendly law enforcement side for you, of a different perspective. Because I could tell you right now, the most single dangerous thing we have storm chasing is not the tornado, it's not the hail, it's not the wind, it's the drivers. And if you look at the fatalities we've had and that's what I do at the summit, right? That's why I mandate some of the stuff I do at the summit, and why I push some of the training at the summit, because I don't want to see anybody else dying for what we love to do. So within that, traffic, I could think of 4 people off the top of my head that's been in a wreck in the last 2 years chasing. All right. I throw myself under the bus. I did not have a properly maintained vehicle. I had tires, and I hydroplaned on I-44 about 12 years ago and almost killed myself. And that goes into all that like what Daniel was saying, that we worry about is if you're going to work for a TV station, are they going to take that liability if somebody runs a light and hits somebody? I could tell you, like my police chief, that the current department I'm going to, they don't have a pursuit policy because they don't want that liability. There's within reason, but so if you play into that to different levels, I could just tell you, as a community, in the storm chasing community, we see this every day. And that's why I asked the media question, because unfortunately there's people that work for those media stations right now in the local area that are the worst out of anybody that I could see on this screen, that I have personally pulled over on duty in my jurisdiction because of what they were doing, running red and blue lights as not as an emergency vehicle. But yet I'm hearing that this same people are pushing this. So that's my worrisome is how much do we control this? And I've heard people say, well, I'm only going to make sure that they give 30 license. That's a worry. And so to you, Scott, that's my worry. Are you open? And you have been open, and you have been completely open with me, and I appreciate it. Are you open to, having left and right limits, but still satisfying what you want? And that's my worry, to back on what Daniel said, was, we got to have left and right limits within the community. And I really wish you could come out with us before this law gets voted on to see truly how dangerous it is to allow even 40 vehicles go through an intersection that's controlled, and everybody thinking they have that right of way. And I think that is the biggest heartburn within the community, is the safety aspect of that. And so, I'm trying to put this in the form of a question, but mainly, are you committed to maybe going out early spring or sometime with somebody that you feel comfortable with, to see just how crazy it could get, and maybe it'll help you with that perspective of trying to formulate this bill?
Eric, you've been so kind to offer. I think Scott will take you up on that offer.
And Scott, you can see a tornado, right? Yeah, there you go.
I should point out too that there's been studies done. You can look them up online, that running code with lights, even without a siren, it only increases the response time. And this isn't a major city, by about 1.5 minutes. I think it was 1.57, something like that. So I think it sometimes it's a little overrated. And I think a lot of departments, like Eric said, they don't do it because there's a 5 times more likelihood of it doing damage when you let someone run code of a serious accident than the actual benefit. So that's something that has to be considered too.
Sure. So let me kind of address that, and thank you all. But I actually had an idea today that I'm gonna run past you. But you know, a lot of things have been brought up to me. You know, people are driving in jacked up trucks, you know, that are with 8-inch lift kits on them, big mud tires. They're flying miles an hour on the highway, and those vehicles are not made to drive 100 miles an hour down the highway. So there are some safety concerns. There's going to be quite a few changes coming in the bill over the next week. I've submitted probably, I don't know, probably 10 changes this evening before I left the Capitol. And so there are a lot of changes coming. But the big hiccup here really seems to be the lights. That's kind of big. That's the big deal. Other than the fact that everybody thought I was going to make every storm chaser have a license, which was never in the language, never the intent. So I've talked to DPS. I've talked to some the Oklahoma Highway Patrol Association today. There's a little bit of mixed. There's a little confusion about, is it legal to run lights of any color currently, or is it not? Yet I've been receiving pictures and things through messages, text messages of vehicles already got lights all over them. They're running storms already. And according to the Department of Public Safety in the state of Oklahoma, that is illegal already. It is not legal to run any lights. I don't care if you're running white lights and amber. I don't care if you're running green and white. In the state of Oklahoma, it is illegal to run lights, period, in a story. That's what I'm being told. So because this was the issue, and remember, keep in mind, we started a conversation Monday. I have a group of people that have asked me on the legislation. I'm getting input from everybody else because I want to be as I want the bill to work. If the bill doesn't work, it's terrible. So I thought of today, I thought lights seem to be the problem. What if, as a potential section, we looked at doing a license, not lights, a license that is a credential that you carry, and you pull up to a roadblock and you can show that license to law enforcement, and then they allow you to pass through. So, or if you do pull up to that intersection where nobody's coming either direction and you run a red light, but there just happened to be a police officer sitting over there that pulls you over, you can show him the credential. That way you're not actually running lights at all. You just have a credential that gives you permission to proceed, basically. That's a potential option. So I'm, Eric, trying to your point, and I'm sorry, Warren.
Yes.
I agree with you. As the bill is currently written in Oklahoma, it's we've tried to do some rough math, and it would cover about 50 people.
Wow.
Be eligible for the license currently. The way it is written. That's just rough math. Not it may don't go everybody go trash me say no, it's 55. It's not 50. I'm just saying it's rough math. We're trying to get a grip on if we move forward, we got this passed and signed into law, how many people does this actually qualify in the state of Oklahoma to get a license? And best we can figure it's around 50. Yeah.
Interesting. Anything more than 6, in my view, would be dangerous.
Well, I mean, it's 50 statewide that would potentially. And so when you consider on a stormy night, you have maybe 3 different sales moving across the state that's spreading everybody out. But I mean, you have hundreds of people already chasing these storms. And so they're not on my news station, but they're out there chasing them. And I had a storm chaser told me today, or no, a highway patrolman said, you do this spring. And by the way, yes, our floor leader in the House and myself have been looking for somebody to take a storm chasing for 4 years now. And so we will take you up on the offer. but he's this Highway Patrol Association guy. He's a trooper. He said, I want you to come to Southwest Oklahoma when they're predicting a storm to see the amount of crap that is sitting there waiting for the storm to fire off. He said it will blow your mind.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I guess you guys, and I'm gonna throw myself in there just because I want to, play pretend here for a little bit. We're like the last cowboys left in the world. I mean, we chase the storm, and we do it so that we can provide safety for the citizens in whatever state we're alerting. But we also do it for passion of Mother Nature and seeing what God created and trying to understand better what was created. And while it is complete disaster, and living in Oklahoma my whole life, I've seen the disaster town after town after town after town. It's so prevalent. Well, no, we make movies about it. We make movies about what you do, and that increases the fascination, the tourism, and all these things. But we wanted to say, at the end of the day, I don't want to storm. But what
We're losing you, Scott.
What
A little bit of break up there.
is that better?
Yeah,
That's better. Yeah.
What I
Thank
want
you.
sure happens is when I'm watching that television, or say I'm in session in Oklahoma City, if my wife is out here on my 80 acres up on top of the hill out of here in New York, Oklahoma, where Jimmy moved because it was a great weather activity area in the state of Oklahoma, I want to make sure that she has the best coverage she can get to make the decision of whether to take my grandchild and my son and her and run to the cellar, because dad's not here and Poppy is not here to help them make those decisions. I want them to have the best possible coverage of that storm they can get, because I'm not here to say go. And so it's all about the safety of the people. And you see it in the movies. You guys have said 1,000 times. They use it as slogans on weather stations. Seconds count. Seconds count in these storms. And so I'm open to whatever conversations you guys want to have.
Yeah. So I know Jordan's on mute right now. Jordan's got a question, and then I think Reed's got a question as well. So we'll go Jordan, and then we'll hit Reed, and then if anyone else does have a question, either in the chat or as part of this panel, just let me know in the private chat, and we'll queue you up here.
So I know safety is obviously a big thing with this bill. My biggest question, I know we were talking about these media chasers that are going to be the ones likely to get the licenses if this bill were to go through. My biggest question is, are all these media chasers going to have to go through first search and first aid training and whatnot there? Because I do know, as a former first responder and storm chaser, when we arrive first on scene, most storm chasers usually don't have first aid training, and a lot of the media chasers from these networks, they're there to provide coverage, but when you roll up, let's say you got lights, red and blues, as a family running out of a house that's just gotten destroyed, they're coming, they see red and blues, they're like, help is here. And when they run up to that vehicle and that person has no idea what to do, because they're media, they're there to provide coverage, but they don't have that training. And then let's say the roadblock that's in this bill gets set up behind, and an experienced chaser who may not be media, but has that search and rescue first responder training, gets stuck at that roadblock and can't get in to help. That's kind of where I might see an issue. But I was wondering if you'd be requiring that training for some of those chasers.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jordan.
Yeah.
I grappled back and forth with this. I addressed it a little bit early in the conversation. I actually, in one of my iterations of the bill today, had that you needed to have CPR training, first aid training, as well as driver safety training. I don't know, Eric, you can help me. The type of training that you would need for high speed
EVOC training. Yeah.
Yeah.
Emergency vehicle operation course.
I had all of that, Jordan, in the bill revision today. I did take out the medical stuff, and I'll explain again why. Is because my intent with the bill, I know you all pull through. Oftentimes, I'm sure you guys are the first people to arrive at the scene. I'm sure that emergency vehicles are not far behind, considering they're watching what you're reporting, and they're on the way. So I know you're going to drive by a place where somebody's running out of a home, and that's why I'm absolutely not good with a red blue light sequence. Even though the bill says that, I'm not good with that at all. But my intent for you all is not to be first responders, medics, et cetera, et cetera. I know you're going to have times when you're going to be compelled to stop to help somebody that's, or whatever it may be. But my intent with the legislation, and that's what's important to remember about legislation, is what is the intent of the legislation? It's not for you to be a medic. It's for you to be a storm chaser and to be able to get through an area that may be damaged or an area that is slowing you down quick enough so that you don't fall far enough behind the storm that instead of running 70 miles an hour down the highway, now you're running 95, 100 miles down the highway because you got held up for 4 or 5 minutes and you're trying to catch back up to the storm. To me, that creates an unsafe environment too. When you get held up, you are not able to catch up at a normal pace or speed for traffic. So thanks for the question. But as of right now, I am only putting in the driver's portion requirement for the license.
Thank you for answering that.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Jordan. Reed, go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Reed. Here, let me see if I can unmute. Hold on.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry, I had to step away, and I was just doing a live breakdown of that tornado situation in Eastern Tennessee on my Facebook, and there happened to be, I think, 5 or 10,000 people watching from that area, and I happen to not be an employee or even a contractor with Legacy Media. I'm not working for a university. I do have a PhD in meteorology from the University of Oklahoma, and I have worked with media occasionally throughout my career, but I've been able to access the people directly with my storm chasing coverage, my radar breakdowns, with the distribution platform we've grown over the years on social media. And I've been able to separate a bit from Legacy Media and reach 10 to 50 times more people in the state of Oklahoma with my live coverage. And I'm worried that this bill might limit my ability to provide that life-saving coverage to Oklahomans that have grown over the last 27 years of storm chasing to follow our coverage, sometimes over the Legacy Media in the state of Oklahoma and beyond that. And my concern is that other states will follow suit and make it difficult for us non-Legacy Media associated storm chasers to provide that life-saving coverage. So my question is, I'm wondering if you would be open to considering adding more professional storm chasers and broaden that definition a little bit, because I've been a professional storm chaser for 27 years. And during a minority of that time, I worked with Legacy Media and with the university, but a vast majority of that, I worked for myself. And I'm wondering if you'd be open for broadening the definition of professional storm chaser to include that license, because I feel like I'm more trained than anybody else that will have access to that license in the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, Reed, thanks for the question. And thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm open to conversation. At some point, someplace, I will have to have a cutoff, and because if I don't, then everybody gets a license and nothing separates anybody. So you should know though, Reed, that if this bill became law today, just exactly the way it is written, which it won't become law for at least till sometime in May, if it becomes law, is when it would be. So if it became law today, nothing at all, Reed, changes your ability to chase a storm the way you've been chasing storms the past 27 years. You still have the same freedoms, rights, and access that you currently have. If the governor signed that bill tonight, I had passed it through, and the governor signed it tonight, I had an emergency clause on there that made it effective immediately upon the signature of the governor. Read, not a single thing would change for you tomorrow if a huge line of storms broke out in the state of Oklahoma. Nothing would change for you.
Okay, that's good to know. I'll take that to heart. Yeah,
Yeah.
as an official statement.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's my concern would be, I guess, if there's like some high-end risk, like a moderate or high risk, and there would be like a emergency declaration, and large swaths of Oklahoma would only be accessible by licensed chasers. And if that happened, that would be a real detriment to Oklahomans. And I think that we would lose lives if that were the case, because then you'd only have like 6 or 10 storm chasers out there that work for a handful of legacy media stations, where maybe 5 or 10,000 people are watching those, and the word just wouldn't get out to the Oklahoman that needs to take shelter and have enough lead time before these tornadoes approach. So realizing the intent of the bill is to save lives in Oklahoma, I would think that you'd want more eyes on these storms and bigger distribution platforms to get the word out.
Yeah, and I have no problem discussing those and figuring out, where is the cutoff, who's qualified, who's not. It's really easy for me, right, to sit back at age 56 and say, man, I've been watching the weatherman on television my whole life. Those guys, they're on top of it. And then my son comes in one day and he's like, Dad, you need to check out this guy on TikTok. He's got some really good, weather reporting. But my first exposure, and I'll be honest with you, it was just this past spring when that happened. So I'm aware that you guys are out there now, and so I'm open to the conversation and figuring out where the cutoff is. I want to go back to something I said earlier, though. I was asked to run a bill by a group of people, and I have to make sure that group of people, that I honor, their ability to have input into the conversation as well. They have been very open. They have actually brought up the same issue and been trying to talk through. We've been trying to talk through what does this look like? To Daniel's point earlier, if you have 50 people trying to run through an intersection with lights on, it could be a catastrophe. So we have to figure out what does the balance look like. But I think the most important thing for everybody to understand, I don't care if you are from Oklahoma or you're from whatever state or you're from another country and you come to Oklahoma in the spring to chase some storms, nothing at all changes. This law has no effect whatsoever on anybody chasing a storm in Oklahoma. The only thing it really does is we are trying to determine who can get access to a license that gives them permission to not have to stop and let the storm get so far ahead of them that they're so far behind that lives are in danger now because they don't have eyes on the ground.
Yeah, but I think one of the problems, when I went and looked at Title 47, which covers the emergency vehicles in Oklahoma, the problem is it creates a host of issues when people are running under that law of emergency vehicles. For example, if they're pulled over partially off the road, you can't pass them under Oklahoma law. If, for example, a news crew that doesn't need to get somewhere real quick but has their emergency equipment on wants to park in the road, they could do that under the law. I mean, the law gives emergency vehicles a very broad power of what they can do and what storm chasers or the public can't do. And that really, I think that would affect a lot of chasers. It would affect a lot of other storm spotters, whether they're Skywarn, they're National Weather Service, if they're volunteer EMS people like I occasionally do. I think that would affect them because we would be treating news crews just like ambulances or fire trucks or law enforcement vehicles. So there is that aspect to it that it could potentially even make traffic worse.
So thanks for that statement, Warren. So maybe you guys can answer the question for me, because maybe I am just under a misunderstanding that when you say we would be giving it to news crews, that is not my intent. My intent is that Warren qualifies for a license and he is a part of whatever channel network that I'm watching at my house, and Warren is out in his vehicle, and maybe he has somebody riding along with Warren to help him navigate the roads and the storm at the same time. And Warren alone is running this storm. Now, you may tell me that there's a caravan of 15 cars with the storm chasers that I'm watching on television. And if you tell me that, I know when you look at the movie, you know, where they're trying to get Dorothy out in front of the storm, yeah, there's 6 vehicles. But it's my, you know, my perception. And again, remember, I'm not a storm chaser other than I like to jump in my truck, go see what I see, but I'm not a storm chaser. So if you're telling me that it's a caravan of a news crew that is chasing these storms, and I've just got the perception that I'm hearing, you know, Val on the television, and it's just Val on there, and it's really a whole crew of people, then that absolutely is going to give me a different outlook on how this entire process looks, because I'm looking at it as Warren is in his car. He's got maybe 1 or 2 people with him helping him navigate the road and the storm at the same time. And Warren's in a single vehicle that is running this storm and reporting back. But you may tell me that it's a news crew.
Yeah, well, actually, I wouldn't qualify under the law, because first, I'm out of state, and second, I don't meet any of the criteria. And I appreciate the thought. I'm not going to hold it to you.
State doesn't matter, by the way. I mean that would be unconstitutional per the U.S. Constitution if I made it so that somebody from Arkansas or Kansas or California or wherever, I can't make a law that is going to stop you from being able to get a license in Oklahoma just because you're not a resident. So it was an example when I used your name. I'm just trying to understand.
I understand.
I'm just trying to understand when you say news crews, you're giving me a whole different idea in my head of what a storm chaser looks like. I look at a storm chaser as a lone wolf a lot of times, that's just out there, maybe in a buddy, and you're or 2, and you're cruising these storms, watching them and reporting back. Maybe there's 10 cars, I don't know. And if there are 10 cars in a caravan, then I probably need to address that in the law some way.
The other part of that is that got brought up earlier tonight was people in the vehicle. Say if you got 1 licensed person in a vehicle, but you got 4 or 5 in there. I mean, it's like me on a DUI arrest. If I've got a bunch of drunk people and nobody can drive that vehicle, are they all subject to the law?
Well, I mean, Eric, you in law enforcement, you well know that law enforcement often does ride-alongs with citizens from the community. I have to obey the laws as a citizen doing a ride-along with a law enforcement officer, which I've done many times. My brother-in-law was a Tulsa police officer for 27 years, and I used to enjoy getting in the car with him on a Saturday night or a Friday night, and he worked a midnight shift and doing ride-alongs. He was the law enforcement. He was the licensed CLEAT certified law enforcement agent, and I was basically just a spectator. So I bet it, but it didn't mean he couldn't do his job because he had a ride-along in the car with him. I think that addresses kind of what you're saying. But no, I think whoever is responsible for, driving the vehicle, and maybe we need to look deeper at that. I mean, I'm open to the conversation. Maybe we need to look at deeper. I mean, maybe it's a crew of 4 people that ride along in a car, and maybe they all have to have the license. I don't know what that looks like. That's why we're having the dialogue. That's why I'm on here.
Yeah. Daniel, go ahead and go next.
I think this is my take from looking from an Oklahoma aspect, Montana, every state. Oklahoma, when there's a mod risk day, a high risk day, you've got everyone from locals to media to science researchers, emergency management. You've got a whole sleuth of a caravan, as you will, up to 1,000 cars. Reed, Jordan, Warren, Eric, you've seen it. And if you had, say, hypothetically 2 media chasers that had their license running red and blues, along with highway patrol or fire and rescue, I think safety and first response to those in need that have been tasked to a medical incident, a crash, and you, as a storm chaser, along that line of say hypothetically 300-400 cars with a stop intersection. We've seen this many times. Piedmont. Which vehicles do you give priority to? You've got 4 or 5 red and blues running behind you. You don't know if they're media. You don't know if they're first responders going to a major incident not related to the tornado. I think if there's going to be a balance, media chasers that should have a degree of access or a way to get closer to the storm quicker, again, being safe and prudent, I don't think red and blues would be the way to do it. Maybe amber and green, or magenta and green, or just a separate set of colors where any storm chaser, or I should say mobile spotter, which is really what they should be, not a storm chaser, but a mobile spotter, thinking about the communities they're visiting. That way we can identify the ones that are licensed. If they're pulled over on the side of the road, if I see red and blues, I'm going to slow way down and come to a stop because I think there's a danger ahead. Are they closing the road? And then I find out it's a media chaser just trying to film it. And then we have a bottleneck of another 200-300 cars behind us. On those dangerous days, and I think, Scott, it's really important, I think maybe chasing with Eric on those big days, if that was at nighttime, and at nighttime, say at 10 p.m., the jet stream kicks in, and the storms that you weren't concerned about will go tornadic. I'm sure Reed can jump on this one. A storm you weren't worried about is now dropping a half-mile wide tornado in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
From when you weren't really paying attention. This happened in Turkey, Texas, where we had chasers going up and down this back road. No one cared. And all of a sudden, jet stream kicked in and it was deadly. And it happened in seconds. And it's terrifying. There were 10 people on that road. Now do that with 300 people with a jet stream that kicks in at night or bad conditions or bad rain, and now add red and blues. If we can identify the media chasers, which we should be giving priority to anyway, if we can, again, just common courtesy, I think plays a lot in this.
Yeah. So
that's just some ideas so we can identify who we need to give priority to, but we know who is an emergency responder. That way we can prioritize who gets to go first, if that makes sense.
yeah, it's a great point, and let me reiterate, there will not be red and blues.
Good.
I've already determined red and blues are the wrong colors. If we run lights, and we may not run lights, we may have a credential, like I said earlier. I mean, that may be where we end up, but we will not. And you spread the word. I promise you, under no circumstances will Scott Fetgatter allow a storm chaser bill to be signed into law that allows storm chasers to run red and blues. Your community has mentioned this over and over and over. Law enforcement has mentioned it over and over. I can assure you, under no circumstances will a storm chaser be running red and blues.
Well, 99.999% of storm chasers can't get the license anyway. So, you know,
Well, I mean, as you were a little bit late to the conversation, Reed, and I talked about that earlier on, about this Monday started a conversation. That's when session began, was Monday. I had a request to run a bill. That bill, I had language, I had deadlines I had to meet. That bill is incomplete. I have 4 months to get the bill right before it would become law. I have a lot of opportunity, a lot of time to work this out. What this bill looks like today, when we started the conversation on Monday, the way you need to look at it is Monday, like I said earlier, the conversation actually started with you guys Friday or Thursday or something of last week. There was a conversation that was started, and we have plenty of time to work through it. I may decide that it gets so convoluted that we're just not going to change the way we chase storms at all.
Yeah.
Anything. But I do think
it might be the right course of action, I think, because I think that we need to really understand the storm chasing community and the complex factions of everything, and it's evolving so quickly and has over the last 25 years. And I'm 44 years old, so I grew up and started storm chasing during that time when you had to rely completely on legacy media and Gary England and Mike Morgan and the chief meteorologist, and that was the only place where you could get your weather information. But in 2025, things are so different now. A majority of Oklahomans get their severe weather information from their phone, from social media, from storm chasers that they know are trained. And I went to school at University of Oklahoma for 17 years to be able to become a meteorologist and get my PhD. And so I don't have to work for legacy media, and so that I can create my own distribution platform. And I'm just concerned with all these regulations and everything that more states are going to pick it up. And I'm just a big freedom guy. And, I see with the vague language in the bill that, there's nothing to really stop somebody from declaring an emergency zone, and that Western Oklahoma only licensed storm chasers can chase there. And I could take your word for it that won't happen. But, in my experience, that taking someone's word for it, usually it gets me in a pretty tough spot.
Well, Ronald Reagan said, "Trust but verify," right?
Yeah, I really think that the media access laws like they have in California for the fires is something, Scott, you should look at. I really think that would get the media to a lot of places they want to go without being hampered. And I can tell you, like I say, if it'll work in LA with that traffic and get me right to the fire instantly, it's working there.
Yeah, and so I want to also make this point, and then I'm gonna have to jump off here shortly, guys. I haven't been home for 5 days, so my wife's gonna get frustrated with me. But a legislative session is 2 years. Actually, I told you till May, but the legislative session, this bill is a live vehicle for 2 years till actually May of 26. That's when the 60th legislative session actually ends. I look at it annually because usually I file my bills, I run them through. Maybe one or two will carry over into the next session, but most of my bills will pass this year. So the only reason I'm on here tonight, Reed, is because of exactly what you said. I'm having the conversations with the storm chasing community. What I need to stop is I need people to stop assuming things. I know the language is not complete, but I assure you that when I put a product out, the pain law, it would be very clear. It is Oklahoma. I can't tell you that the state of Oklahoma, the governor might not declare a state of emergency somewhere. I don't know that a state of emergency changes anything because it would be after the fact. I think they're going to declare a state of emergency prior to a tornado. I don't know that
they do with hurricanes. So ahead of a big tornado outbreak, I think that could be something that that could be in the cards for tornadoes. But we've already stated that my storm chasing will not change after the bill. So
yeah. So, but I mean, declaring a state of emergency ahead of a tornado, maybe that's happened in my lifetime and I just don't realize it. Certainly something we can look at. Warren, Eric, if you could, you've got my cell phone number. Could you text me what Warren's talking about the law in California is, just because I won't remember by Monday when I get back to the office, and I have a full day of legislative forums tomorrow. But I just want to reiterate, we're not trying to hurt anybody. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to change storm chasers' ability to chase storms. Yeah. But I don't want 1,000 people lined up, all licensed up, running red lights through Morris, Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think that's a dangerous scenario.
Yeah.
And so, my concerns for the Oklahomans, for not having access to our life-saving information if we don't have a license. So that's my concern as a storm chaser, is that, the the 100,000 plus Oklahomans that watch my live stream, I'll be stuck at the tail end of the line. But usually I'm there when it touches down and there's nobody to be seen. So if you're behind the long line of traffic, you made a mistake to get there. You're not chasing properly, and then you have to pass the line of 1,000 cars illegally, on a double yellow. But if you're there when it touches down and follow the storm with it, the traffic isn't an issue. So
Reed makes a great point.
I'm
Just
also
because you
wondering
have a license here.
And how close does Valcaster need to be to the tornado to provide life-saving?
No kidding.
I weren't here earlier when I actually talked about that very thing. We actually already addressed, maybe we need to broaden the scope. I'm that. Val and the people that have requested the bill, they're open to that. We just have to figure out where do you start, where you stop. And I actually used your exact example, Reed. I said, I don't want to use the number of subscribers because it's all about the citizens of Oklahoma for me. So I want to make sure that you and I know that we're on the same page. This is about safety and the warning and the Oklahoma citizens to have all the warning they need ahead of time. But if one guy on the internet has 500,000 subscribers and you have 100,000 subscribers, where does the line draw?
Well, you could go meteorology degree, but none of the people pushing the bill have a meteorology degree.
Hold on.
That's why that's not a requirement.
My thought, if you don't mind, let me finish my thought.
Certainly.
That's working through is where do you draw the line? I don't think subscribers is the right way, because if I said, all right, we're going to cut it off at 50,000 subscribers. That's just a number I just randomly pulling out there. Now I'm saying that those 50,000 subscribers don't matter. And that's not the way it should be done. So right now it just says you have to be a part of a group of people that have an FCC license, basically.
Yeah, it's just so outdated, unfortunately. But
Can I make a suggestion? Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel. And then,
hold on.
So hold on real quick, guys. So go ahead, Daniel, and then Vince. I know, Scott, you got to go. So I know it's late, so I don't want to have to keep you. But so Daniel, maybe go ahead, and then Vince, and then Scott.
Got it. We've got a whole background of Chase's experience, but the warnings come from one real place, the National Weather Service. Yeah. No matter what happens, it's going to come from the horse's mouth. People will trust that warning information, whether it's delivered via live stream, TV broadcast, spotter network, it doesn't matter. It should always go back to one place, whether it's 911 and the liaison through the EOC, amateur radio nets, no matter what you're using, it's always going to go back to the NWS, and everyone should complement each other. So the National Weather Service in each state know who the chasers are. In this case, I want to call them mobile spotters. I don't think they should be called chasers. We chase storms, but the ones that really focus on safety, care about the communities, are mobile spotters. And probably using that term rather than storm chasers is a better way of saying people who prioritize the safety of the communities they visit. Not a storm chaser. Storm chaser could be anyone. A mobile spotter is someone who reports and prioritizes that safety. And that could be from all walks of life, from internet broadcasting to Reed, to Jordan, to Eric, to Rory, all your traditional chasers in all areas. And I think the National Weather Service, the warning coordinators will know, are the ones, get a sign off from them, say, hey, they've applied for the license. Do they have a track history of caring about the community and reporting? And maybe they can do the final sign off. And that will be from the people who actually do the warnings. They know the ones that are committed to public safety. That's just an idea for you.
Yeah,
get it signed off by the people who make the warnings.
Fair point.
Yeah. So Vince, really quickly, I know you had a question too. Vince, can you hear me?
All right, I've got a terrible connection. Did you hand it over to me? Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I've got terrible phone service here, but I want to add something, folks, from a perspective of an outsider. I've been in EMS since 2014. I basically essentially sort of dropped out of high school to get into this. I managed an ambulance service and I managed people. We had licensed emergency vehicles, a fleet of them, personal owned vehicles. and it was a nightmare. We had people with EVOC. I used to be an EVOC instructor and a CEVO instructor, which is Emergency Vehicle Operation Certification. It is not a good idea to put more emergency vehicles on the road, whether it's lights or not, because here's the problem that happens. You've got people, you've got a conflict of interest. I don't care if it's Val, anybody, I don't care if it's me. If we're going to go ahead and enable any sort of special access to anybody, you've got a conflict of interest because they need to get that shot for their job, and now they're like, oh, hey, we've got a way to do it, and you're also losing the intention of the public interest, because most storm chasers, all of us, we're basically out there to get the shot and get the experience. Obviously, we'll still report and all that, but it's like what Reed alludes to, that we've been storm chasing for years. Okay, it's been fine. I show up on a scene and call 911. I'm going to be, I report everything. Everybody in this chat right now probably calls 911 when they come up on the scene of something. But to prioritize certain people over others, this just doesn't, it's not going to work. Trust me. We had like 20 people that had a piece of paper in their glove box that said they're an emergency vehicle from the time that pager goes off to the time that call is done. They go lights and sirens or no lights and sirens. You know how many accidents we had? You know how many incident reports we had? And these are people that were professionals. They were vetted. They were trained. It's because when you put 5, 6, 7, 8 more emergency vehicles on a clogged road, it's hell. It's absolute hell. And it's like what Reed says. We can, or what you were talking about with Reed, we can get into this. Oh, hey, what's media? What isn't? It's just a constant nitpicking of this, that, the other thing. What would be better if this is going to be something would be to just be a blanket. I don't care if it's broadening the fire department scope or whatever, and say, hey, if you've already got an existing agreement with your fire department and you've got your lights and all that crap and you're a storm chaser, well, we're going to allow you with your chief's permission to operate out of your area. I don't know, but I will tell you one thing, folks. When it comes to storm chasing, we are out there. We are the eyes on the ground. Okay, I've responded. I've thrown all the vehicle laws out the road or out the window. Rolling Fork tornado night, I'm the first to admit I was doing excess of 100 miles per hour because we saw that town getting ripped up. Showed up and there was dead people that could be saved, people that couldn't be saved, and it was miserable. And you know what? I'm glad I broke the rules to get there, but I didn't need no special license to do it. And if me not having a special license gives me additional penalties, over any sort of speeding ticket or whatever that might get, I think that's horse crap that we're going to allow. Basically, we're just opening these doors. This bill is in its infancy here, and I know that we're commenting on this, folks, but it's everybody on the internet is upset that this is getting rushed. And I'll shut up here in a second. I know everybody's got to go, but folks, there's a lot of storm chaser lobbying going on here, but there's not a lot of public sector or public safety lobbying, and I'm just barely touching on all these points here to just give people things to think about. But storm chasers are not emergency responders unless they're trained or they're calling 911 or whatever. But giving the media, I don't even care if it's me or Reed or Stormcat 5 or Stormcat 27 special access, or whether it's emergency access or access to a closed area, it's going to do nothing but piss off the cops and put an unnecessary burden on the cops and the first responders there, unless that person shows up with a skill. If I show up to a Rolling Fork or a Moore, Oklahoma, go up to the cops and say, hi, I'm an EMT. I used to manage an ambulance service. Do you need my help or not? It's either yes or no. If no, see you later. Have a good day. Not screw you. Get out of my way. I've got a license. Now I've got an altercation, because that's what will happen. Because I have physically been stopped by TV storm chasers, not Val, some guy from Channel 6 and Channel 9, physically stopped when there was a guy with a compounded femur fracture, which is a bone sticking out of his leg, bleeding out. And he said, oh, no, we can't have anybody else here. I said, I'm an EMT. I've managed an ambulance service. This guy needs help. And had to damn near physically push this guy out of the way. We're going to have more ego trips than anything. We got to get the storm chasers chasing storms, teach them how to screw this bill. Let's start teaching CPR, stop the bleed, basic first aid, basic rescue, basic search and rescue, and let's just get on with our lives. That's my 2 cents. Back to you, Stormcat.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
I've got that, and it's like what Reed said. I mean, just let us chase, like, for Christ's sakes. Like, this is so overcomplicated at this point. But
Well,
I've got a room full of
so-
fire department and public safety folks over here that probably have
Yeah.
an opinion.
Thank you, Vince. Scott, I do want to give
Yeah.
I do want to give Scott a chance. I know,
Yeah,
Scott. I
I'm
know we're
finishing
all
up, don't
Scott.
worry.
I know we're all piling on. So I don't. But I want to give you a chance and like. I know there's been a lot of different points. So I don't think this. We need to solve the world's problems here, right? But
So let me say this. First of all, I wrote about 98% of the marijuana laws in Oklahoma, and I'm not a marijuana guy. The storm chasers are not nearly as vicious as marijuana users are. I can just tell you right now. So I'm tough enough to compete. Not people piling on. I will tell you right now, there's nothing about a bill that is filed that stops anything at all about getting on with chasing storms. Not a single thing. There is nobody getting a fine for running the way you currently run. If you break the law, you're going to get a normal traffic ticket, just like you would for any other reason, whether you're chasing a storm or not chasing a storm. This bill does not. There was a story that we were going to have $500 fines if you didn't have a license. That's just horse shit. It's not true. The fine is if you have a license and you're breaking the law, you could get up to an extra $500 fine. Nothing changes, Vince, about the way you're chasing a storm right now. Get on chasing storms. I'll root you on all the way. This bill, it's not about how close does Val need to get to a tornado, because at the end of the day, I'm sure you all get very close to them. I mean, it just is what it is.
not me. I've never seen one, so I'm not getting anywhere close to one. Apparently,
I've never seen one either.
Scotty, if you do a chase with Eric, you wrote the marijuana bill, you'll be smoking the stuff. You want to chase with Reed, you'll be injecting the stuff.
Yeah,
just saying.
I'm a freedom loving American from Oklahoma.
Val's gonna give you a ticket.
What?
Val will be able to pull you over and give you a ticket.
Yeah, it's not the Val bill. People ask me to run, and I think it's worth the conversation. And you know, up with the bill is where we'll end up with the bill, and that where we end up with the bill is the bill may go away. But I will tell you this: I am not the right legislator to say shit can the bill, shut up about it, leave us alone, because I think it's worthy of a conversation. Because what we are talking about is better response times. Because I go back to the story earlier, I watched the news, and the news did not report the tornado that touched down within 5 miles of my house. It was a storm spotter.
Spotter, you got a mobile spotter. That's what I was saying.
That called in to the National Weather Service that caused them to sound the alarms in my hometown. Now DPS tells me that I lied, basically, and I called him out on it. I'm like, no, you're calling me a liar now. That's not going to work. But I'm not really good with hell no, we won't go. That's just not my nature. I try to find the best pathway, and if at the end of the day, after all the conversations have been had and all the blood pressures have been risen and dropped back down, if the bill is not got merit, then I won't run the bill, and I will kill the Senate bill and I will kill the House bill. And I talked about that at the beginning of the conversation. I'm a tenured legislator. I have the ability to stop a piece of legislation, especially if I am the author.
And Scott, and hopefully, if anything, it's raised awareness, and hopefully every young chaser looks at this, and they look at the veteran chasers, the newer chasers, the ones who've been doing it for 10 years, 5 years, and they go, you know what? I do want to do my trauma training, basic first aid, have responsibility, get an amateur license, and prioritize the safety of the communities the people visit. As you said, the people who warned your town what affected your life, your family, your friends.
And we
What's
have
a
lots
mobile
of
spotter?
cases like that too, Daniel. With like Andover, Kansas in 2022, we were flying a drone, streaming live to Facebook. The fire chief was watching that video, pulled the sirens. The weather
Emergency
service,
management, yep, in
weather
seconds.
service, well, in your case, the weather service didn't issue a tornado warning for that one either. So you can't always start it.
You can't always just start, and that's
a tornado on the ground causing big problems. It's a team effort, it's not
it
one
is.
for people. But I think, Scott, a solution to this, we broaden the definition of professional storm chaser. We maybe tighten up some of the language on what powers they might have as an emergency vehicle. We might prevent the ability from anybody to declare, rope off a whole area of Oklahoma in the middle of a tornado outbreak that might prevent our access. And we need to talk to the Oklahomans too and make sure that we're not costing lives by putting this bill into position, because they're basically limiting the number of eyes on a storm at any given time. And when you have a whole army of storm chasers out there, it's almost impossible for a tornado to go unreported. And I can quote so many cases where I've been on a tornado, streaming it live, reporting it, siren sound, 50,000 to 100,000 people watching it. People take shelter, save lives, and then bang, the media trucks show up. The tornado warning is issued after the damage is already caused. So I think we could broaden the definition, tighten up some of the language, or just get rid of the bill completely. But storm chasers are nice. We're not like the weed people.
But challenge, because if the bill passes right now, it does not limit the number of eyes on a tornado. Nothing changes. I mean, anybody that doesn't have a license can continue to chase a tornado, spot a tornado, whatever verbiage we need to use. Nothing changes for anybody.
So there's no chance that the governor can declare a disaster zone in the middle of a tornado outbreak that limits the non-licensed storm chaser to chase?
There is nothing expressed in the legislation that authorizes the governor to do that. Now, I will tell you, if that's the case, if the governor could declare a state of emergency, the governor could declare the state of emergency right now without a piece of legislation. Now, what you do bring up a good point that I will go research, and that's my commitment to you, Reed, is that I will go research.
Thank you.
Is can the governor, if there are licensed storm spotters in the state of Oklahoma, can the governor declare a state of emergency prior to an outbreak of tornadoes, and stop everybody from chasing? I don't think he can.
I believe what Reed's
the road, like let's say a media chaser is declared, they get their license. Are they able to close roads?
No.
Okay, that's huge.
I think.
Go ahead, Warren.
I know. I think what the thing is here is you go back again. We talked about Title 47 and emergency vehicles. I believe the way that works, I could be wrong, but the discussion was that if there is an emergency declared, only emergency vehicles could be on the road, which would include, the way this law is written, would include the television chasers, but no one else. I believe that's the mechanics of how that works.
That's how it reads, yeah.
So remember, Monday we started a conversation, and I can tell you the bill has already changed substantially as of right now. I have not put it out publicly because I don't at this point. I have time to work on the bill before. I don't want to release a new iteration of the bill every day. So I'm trying to compile the data to release it in larger chunks. But I am, if a tornado blows through the town of Okmulgee, which thank God there's never been a tornado hit my hometown. They've hit all around us. But they can shut off the roads to you right now and you've got to go around, right? Am I correct?
I think with the media, well, yeah. Before the tornado, yeah, I think they can close it. Yeah, I think police officers, emergency people could close it. So technically, a media chaser would probably be able to do the same.
I've seen law enforcement shut roads down with tornadoes.
That happens. I mean, that's because law enforcement will have the final call. The scariest thing, and I'm sure everyone's been here multiple times, and Scott, it is absolutely terrifying, is when law enforcement shuts down the road on information that's 3.5 to 4 minutes old. and a new cell forms in behind it, and we've seen this happen, and we tell them, you understand if you stay here, you're going to die. And 4 minutes, 5 minutes later, a tornado is going to go straight through over the car. The amount of times we've told, are you staying here? Yeah, no, we're like, you need to move. And they're gone. They're gone minutes later.
Daniel, to big
this, I will make sure that a licensed storm chaser, I will make sure if I need to in the legislation, a licensed storm chaser, even if we ended up running with lights, which I don't know that we end up on that path. I will make sure in the legislation that it says a licensed storm chaser has no legal authority to close down a road. I can do that. The great thing about writing a law is as long as it's constitutional, I can write whatever law I want.
I think we talked about that. Yeah, we talked about that specifically a blocking of roadways the other day with you, and you know how passionate I am and why I'm passionate about it. About, I'm a law enforcement officer, and I don't think any law enforcement officer should be blocking any road beforehand. Right. It's different when you got debris on the roadway from a tornado, but beforehand, how passionate I am. And just so you know, Daniel, that's one of my biggest things with Scott that I've kind of constantly harped on is that it's actually, I have a proven track record that it's killed people. Yes. So within that, Scott, just know that I'm on top of that with Scott, and I'm definitely, that's one of my biggest things going forward with him on a day-to-day basis that we've talked is the safety aspect of that. It goes back to Vince as well. You're correct in what you said, but just know that Scott has been completely open to that side of our view on it, on the public safety side of it. That was the first conversation we ever had. So I could guarantee you Scott's mind is public safety foremost, because that was 100% the first conversation we ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be wonderful is having, if you are looking at accreditation, no matter how it comes, if someone was to have accreditation, it's not because of having lights on a vehicle, it's to have that instant recognition with emergency management, fire department, police, whoever it is. It's to say, I'm a trained, not just a Skyway spotter who's done a 2-hour course. You can have people who've done a 2-hour course and have no knowledge, and you've had people who do a 2-hour course and 15 years of chasing and still can get caught out by a tornado. But to have that certification, not because of privilege, because they've screwed up the forecast, they can go fast and go through a red light. It's to have that instant recognition, say, look, I'm a trained spotter, I'm certified, this is what's happening, and that law enforcement, the fire department, the emergency management go, you're certified, we trust you. And you have that instant recognition to go, this is what's happening, come look at the radar. This already happens already. And the collaboration is nothing more than a privilege. And they work together in the field for the public safety. But if you're going to have certification, have it so there's collaboration rather than, hey, I screw up the forecast, let's go quicker. Because as you said, as long as there's a spotter warning that storm, it's going to get out to media eventually, and the warning is going to get out. It might take 15 seconds or 30 seconds longer, but it's going to get out and it's going to be done safely. Collaboration and trust in the field, I think, is key.
Yeah, and I think this bill is meant to save lives. So it assumes that by granting these media chasers the ability to jump forward by 100 cars, that you're going to increase the warning lead time by X amount, or if not worsen it. I think that this bill would actually lengthen the warning lead time and put Oklahomans at risk, because you'd have drastically less eyes on the storm. The people that are most trained, like probably the people on this call, will be way in the back of the line. Most of the time we'll be there when the tornado touches down. But I just don't see the relationship by allowing a handful of chasers the ability to jump forward in line or speed or drive recklessly to catch back up to a tornado is going to increase the warning lead times for a significant number of Oklahomans. So that's really the problem, is that the bill just simply does not solve what it's intended to solve.
Well, and so I go back to a comment somebody made a moment ago about, trusting and having good communication. That's why I'm here, Reed. I mean, you can be upset about the bill.
I'm not upset. I would never be upset about that, but I am passionate, about storm chasing, about meteorology, and most importantly about saving lives in the path of these storms. So, and the science that we do that is self-funded science. It's
and
that,
I am passionate, or I have no business being in office. I mean, I'm a redneck from Okmulgee, Oklahoma that lives out on a farm and deer.
good rattlesnakes out there.
Oh gosh, get me started on that.
That's where Mike Scantlin cruises for the pygmies.
I just happen to. So my job is to make sure that public safety is my number one priority. It's the priority of government is defense of our country and public safety, and so that's why I'm here. I didn't care. I wouldn't be out here tonight after a long week at the Capitol. On a call with you guys. So listen, I want to leave you with this. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, the best bill is a bill where everybody walks away from the table and they got a little something and they didn't get everything, because if somebody got everything they wanted and other people didn't get anything, then that was a bad bill. My goal is to make sure that we have a bill. I'm here. I was watching before I came on the show. I was watching before you all even knew I was on the show.
Scott, we call that lurking. We call that lurking.
Lurking.
Scott, I think the best bill is the bill that helps give people that extra 30 seconds they need.
Yeah.
And however that is done. And I think I discount what you said. I think you're a great legislator because you've taken the time to listen. You've taken the time to jump in head first into a wealth of knowledge. And thank you for your time. Because it takes guts to come on.
Thank you.
It takes guts to front up and do that.
You guys, evening, continue the conversation. Just know that State Representative Scott Fetgatter appreciates you, and I actually have admired your work my whole life. And
we'd love to take you storm chasing in the down.
Careful what you wish for. He's driving right into it, baby. Let's go.
My wife here shaking her head at me, going, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" Hey, part of the ride of being a legislator is getting the opportunity to meet great people like yourselves and experience a lot of different things in life. And so I appreciate it. You guys have a good night. Feel free to reach out to me. Eric has a direct line to me. Reach out to me through him. It's hard for me because I am so busy during session. It's hard for me to answer 100 phone calls. But if I've got a point of contact or even a group text, I try to respond when I can. So you guys have a great night. God bless you. And man,
thank you.
Keep chasing the storm, boys.
Thank you, Representative.
Yeah, Scott, seriously, thank you so much.
It's never stop chasing. Never stop.
All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Never stop.
Thanks,
Scott, thank you, my friend. Show a lot of love to Scott in the chat, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Never
My takeaway. Can I put my takeaway in on this?
What a
real
great
quick?
gentleman.
Yeah, go ahead. Hold on. I gotta highlight a couple super chats here. We got Jacob. Thank you, Jacob. He says, "I'm a freedom-loving American."
Live the whole time. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We got Inspector Sassy as well. Thank you, Inspector Sassy. And then we also got Timothy Baca as well. So thank you all for the super chats. Saw all of those. So thank you guys. Jordan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think my final take on it is that I think you need to go into the field and see it firsthand before you can really make your decisions on that kind of thing. So I think, and it seems like he kind of understands that, but I think someone's got to take him out there and just show him, because you don't understand it till you understand it. If that makes sense, as a storm chaser, you know that.
So the piggyback on
that's
that,
on you,
Jordan,
Eric.
Yeah. So piggyback on that, Jordan, I agree with what you're saying. Is he's being fed a certain bit of information, and what I'm going to say may be blunt and to the rude. There is somebody out there that has our intentions not in mind and really don't give a crap about us.
Yep.
And we all know who that is. And so we need to focus our energy towards positivity of how to make this in our favor. And maybe we turn the tables, right? And,
I think that we just got to go back to the root cause of the bill. It's to save the lives of Oklahomans.
Yeah.
All we have to do is show that the bill doesn't contribute to that, and it doesn't. I think that what contributes more so to that are the thousands of people out there streaming live. I think maybe if you allowed the news networks to have access to all of our feeds, maybe that could.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Vince
That's
made
a
great
great
points
idea.
too.
I thought about that today. Wouldn't it be great if we could just have like one big pool of data that comes in and
Yeah.
live feeds that everybody could look at. Just think what that would do.
I've already set that up. I mean, I've had that set up for ages, but I think it's a good thing. Having it's if you need help with it, it's just simply a back end form. National Weather Service fill in, emergency management. And I think one year I even had the U.S. military tap in, which was funny up at the Air Force Base. Yeah, it was head of Washington D.C. Health Department for real time information. We sent standing with a sheriff analyzing a wedge tornado that wasn't there.
Well, yeah, you should. I mean, you should literally have it. I've tried to start doing this with just web cameras in the background. Literally getting as many cameras as I can on the screen of wherever the tornado is to try to get some sort of visual on it, right? Because that's ultimately what will save lives is the visuals, and obviously also Warren, with your point earlier about people that are in the warning. Yeah, but go ahead.
It's not just the warning. I mean, I've spoken to people, and all of you've chased around the country. I've spoken to people from South Carolina to Montana to New Mexico. They have said to me, and I'm sure all of you, tornado warning, we wait for the confirmation. A storm spotter has confirmed a tornado. No, I said, no, never wait for the confirmation, because one storm could be confirmed and not producing and the other one not. It's because there's misreporting. Never wait for the confirmation. And that's a big thing. I'm sure you've come across it many times, all of you, where people go, I just wait for it to be confirmed before I take action.
I missed the days of TV and weather when Reed had about 80 of us on there.
TV and weather.
That's what made me go broke faster than TV and weather.
I got a good point here, if I may, and I think this is right off Reed's alley.
Go.
Yeah, I don't mean to be a sarcastic asshole here, but I don't believe in government overstepping into everything here. I mean, chasing's been fine since the 70s, but there's so many freaking potholes in Oklahoma. Have you ever driven in Oklahoma, folks? I mean, I think we should be putting our time and energy into that, for Christ's sakes here. I mean, I don't mean to be a smartass, but my God, it's like trying to get anything else done when it comes to budget or anything. It takes forever, but God forbid you want some storm chasers to do something in a bill, and my God, we're going to push it through. Holy smokes.
I got one word for that. It's called lobbyist. It's called a lobbyist and knowing somebody how to lobby, and it gets on their doorstep.
Yes.
Hire me. I don't take no for an answer. I'll just go live out in Oklahoma and lobby all I can, right? No. But, yeah, I mean, guys, I think this is so rare to get this kind of panel here talking about this issue. So it seems like, I don't know, something like this is it's anything that I can do to set anything like this up in the future as this continues to go, right? I just, I want, because ultimately for me, right, like I'm in Ohio, I go out chasing once a year. It doesn't really affect me as much, but you guys are all my friends, and I don't want this to affect the community in a negative way. And so I think as this continues to move along, we keep an open dialogue, Eric, to your point, and just making sure that we represent as a unified front of, because this affects everyone on this call. This affects a lot of people in the chat. This affects a lot of chasers beyond. There is so many storm chasers nowadays, and so I think just having this crew kind of be our a unified front of different opinions that we have to continue trying to influence is key. But
I agree.
Yeah. All I'm saying is the summit is a week from now. I hope to see most of you there. I think, except for Daniel, unfortunately. I would fly in.
Daniel, you're not flying overseas?
If you would fly me in, it would be my pleasure.
You know what? We might have to be in contact, Daniel. We might use some of the jet fund for that.
If we could put the license fees towards the new storm chaser badges that you have, send it my way.
But
we should get a car rental badge. I'm
Reed, I'm going to start my own car rental company, Reed, just so I can rent you cars.
Walmart, so I'm set.
I'm looking forward to seeing you.
I can't even rent cars. I'm not going to be able to get one of these licenses.
But before I jump off of here, because I do got to jump off of here, I'm going to make a commitment from the Storm Chaser Summit side. No matter what bullshit comes down from legislation, I will make sure that we are the forefront. If there's any training required, to make sure that every Storm Chaser, whatever they bring up, gets that certification and has those requirements. It's not about money for me. It's about doing the right thing and getting the community together on this and making sure that we can get as many people out there qualified to do this. I don't care what it takes. I'll make that commitment right now on the Storm Chaser Summit side to do what we got to do. We've already got some of that going on the medical side, so maybe we'll
So
just
what you're
continue
saying
with
is it is
everybody's
about the
input.
money. I'm just kidding.
No, actually,
Whatever someone
you want to
says
talk
it's
money? I'm taking donations at this point. So, but
Are you going to legislate those donations, Eric? I can't wait till you take Scott out on a chase. He's probably still listening. Come on, do it. I dare you.
Oh my God.
You know what, Reed? Just do it properly.
Oh yeah, get him in one, man. Get him in one.
Yep. Imagine how many lives you could save if you're inside the tornado as opposed to 50 yards outside of it.
Imagine his reaction when you just see the screws going down to the ground on either side. He's like, "Wait, what are we doing?" Oh,
You guys know.
Thanks, guys.
You guys all know. You guys all know these lobbyists and the people that are lobbying for this probably chase, 10 days out of the year. I know Reed's going to get my point, and sorry to be arrogant, but the folks that are out here, every damn day, God forbid we try to get anything, but you get the news chasers, there's good ones, but there's some bad apples out there who do nothing but run people off the road 5 days out of the year. But my God, their voices are loud. Let me tell you, my God, ridiculous.
Vince, you get plush dinosaurs. That's what you get. That's just the no license.
Well, it's funny because we'll put the people that are out here all the time, we'll put our input in. I'm not talking about this stream, but just in general, we get fluffed off. Oh, you're not the news media. Well, yeah, you're right. And let's be frank, we probably have a bigger reach. We probably get paid more, and we're probably more successful than the news media. I don't mean to be that way, but look at Ryan Hall. You don't see the Weather Channel or KFR pulling in, 35 bajillion views every time they post a video. And it's worth something.
Yeah, they're 100%. They're like, granted, this channel's small, but there's a reason why we're doing what we're doing. It's because the audience is there, and more people than ever are getting their weather coverage from YouTube and from Twitter and from all these other social media sites, and less people are watching the news. And I'm not saying no one watches the news. The news is still a very viable way to get information, but there's so many other ways that are continuing to increase more and more every time. And it's just,
it's not the Gary England days, James
no,
Spann days anymore.
No, it's not. If it was, I would have went into broadcast meteorology out of college, right?
Correct.
I mean, but that's just not the way it is anymore,
Yeah, it's the era of Jordan H. Hall, Storm Cat 5,
Yeah.
Vince Multi.
Very
Hey, Warren, I had one of your photos up on my wall when I was a child growing up.
I remember you telling me that before.
Big fan of yours throughout.
I've never forgot that time, that one brief time we talked about that.
I had this massive Warren Fadley photo above my bed. So
I think that's the one I saw you sell on eBay, wasn't it?
No. Heavens no.
Doppler Dick just says, if I have to pull over for licensed crumb bums out on the chase, I'll give up storm chasing and only chase only chase whey protein with Mountain Dew. And he's an Eagles fan, so that's great.
Who?
Doppler Dick.
Doppler
And then
Dick.
we also had Holly as well. Great conversation tonight. Thank you, Holly. Cara D. This has been an awesome night. Tamster member. Thank you guys all for that. So, guys,
Doppler
any
Dick,
final
that's my
thoughts?
secret account.
Final thoughts is what the hell would Chuck Doswell be saying about this right now?
Oh man.
You imagine?
Oh, he'd have something to say.
Having him on.
Rest in peace.
He might be saying,
Rest
"Where's
in
my
peace.
certification I've earned?" And God bless him.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, it's good seeing you, man.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Have a great conference, and I hope you got some good support.
Yeah,
you,
I do.
Daniel.
I really appreciate everybody that supports it and everybody that's it's really grown, and it's all for the community and nothing else.
Hey,
Man, can I just
Eric,
say,
it's
Eric,
my first one this year. I'm excited. I got no expectations, so I'm excited,
Yeah.
man.
And Eric, can I just say thanks for representing, obviously from not just from a
Yes.
colleague, professional, and law enforcement
Thanks, Eric.
aspect. You've got a lot of respect in the industry, a lot of experience to call upon, and the fact that you've helped represent the greater community, that means a lot to us. And thanks.
Yeah,
for
when he helped bring
taking that lead as well.
bring Scott on. So thank you for that, Eric. I mean, our conversation was immensely better, right, with that. So
Yeah,
Well,
and I feel bad.
he's got a good foundation. He's got a good start.
Yeah.
He definitely wants to build a pass.
Yeah, and I think his heart's good, but like you said, I think he's being led in a direction that was misguided, and hopefully we can get him on that path.
He needs to
He
experience it
wants that
firsthand.
bill to pass.
Yeah.
We're all polite, for both sides, but we don't want that bill to pass.
The bill is going to create danger.
Thanks, Tim, sir.
It's going to it's going to add to the danger, not the other way.
It's not
Well,
good
I think-
for Oklahomans,
I
and
think
that's what
one-
we really have to emphasize.
Sorry about that. I think one of the biggest takes tonight I got from this was at the very beginning when he said that the Highway Patrol did not support that. I think that's big. I think that's a major development.
Yeah.
I think at one point, I think I wrote it down. He did say Valcaster was one of the ones to initially call for that bill. So I just want to know.
He said it was a local TV station for sure. So
And I
and then he
asked
also
him
had
blank
backed by
if
Val.
they were behind it, and he said no.
3 hours and 17 minutes in, if you want to go back and watch that.
Yeah,
I wrote the
maybe if he
timestamp.
chased with Val, he would instantly just get rid of the bill.
yeah.
I mean, I've had Val behind me
He
many
makes it all
times.
alive.
He-
Holy
I mean,
crap.
I've had Val behind me many times. He hasn't tailgated me. He hasn't driven dangerously
Yeah.
behind me. And I
He's a good
see him
guy,
coming.
so-
I see him coming back. He's a lovely guy. And I've seen him come up behind me. I know he's broadcasting live. I know he's got traditional media. And I've just pulled over and just say, "Hey, you go ahead." And I just indicate, slow down, let him go through.
Yeah,
And
I've never
he did his
personally
job.
had
And I think he's appreciated that as well, because it's a good balance. And I know he needs to get through, and I'm doing different streaming and different angles. Let him pass, and that way we can all be safe on the roads. That's the end goal. We live to see another day. And keep
last
reporting.
thing here that we didn't discuss, which I find kind of interesting, is I wonder what the guys in like NCAR, some of the other, was it MIT, the other groups that have, Reed probably knows more of these than I do, that have some of their own Doppler and some of their own research. I wonder what they're thinking, because the way the bill's written,
College
they wouldn't
page
include it in the licensing. It's only for Oklahoma. I think specifically they said OU. So I wonder, no one's got their opinion. They can't be happy about this. They seem, it's.
I truly believe that he wrote that quickly to get the process going. I think that's why it's written the way it is. It's so badly. Is like he said, he's got to stick something onto the wall and then mold it. And so, in my opinion, I truly believe that they're going to change the wording to this to help that situation, Warren. I think that's a great
There is
point.
big rift though between the university research chasers and the regular storm chasers, and that theme was even played up in the movie Twisters.
Yep.
And that's a real theme that exists, between self-funded researchers that are paying for their own science, those that are funded with grants and have a big, large-scale research project. They a lot of times think that they're more important than the self-funded researchers or the other storm chasers, and so they're I could see that them being involved in the lobby process, that there are two groups of people that don't want us out on the road and want exclusive access to these storms: the university researchers and the media chasers. And that's why they're behind the bill, and the goal of the bill is to give them more exclusive access to these storms, because they think that it'll save the lives of Oklahomans. But the fact is that it doesn't. That's the mathematics doesn't add up.
Yeah,
they're probably using it more as an excuse than
10
anything.
people on a storm versus 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as someone can see it, but as long as someone reports it, whoever's there first, well done on the forecast. Maybe you got lucky.
And they get
But
the
if
information.
If you are the first to see it, I mean, as everyone's streaming, they're going to get, if 1,000 people on the storm, someone's going to see it on some camera. But when it's more rarer or nighttime, we don't wait 3 minutes to make the phone call. We do that quickly. We make the amateur radio call. We make the spotter network report it quickly if we know it's less coverage. You're 1,000 chasers on the storm, they're going to see it from 50 angles.
Hey guys, I got to run. Gizmo's got to go to the bathroom.
Thank you, Reed.
Good thing, Reed. I'll see you soon.
Guys, thank you, Eric.
I've got